Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
All right, did it work, you guys? Did the magic of technology work? Let's see. Yeah, excellent. I'm so happy. Wonderful. I can't. DSN said I actually passed chat on the way in. Beautiful. Love it. That was brilliant. That was brilliant. That was so brilliant. Oh my God. Yes, that's y'all. Shout out to Iowa. Happy to see you. Hope you guys have all checked out Iowa's channel with the new location for the cute squirrely squirrel footage. So, oh my God, that's so fucking funny. You guys are the best. Oh wait, we're missing the music. Not that music. Hold on. Night driving. Okay. Wait. It's gonna go loud. Turn it down. I usually have the volume adjusted. All right. Okay, there we are. Cool. I always love it too, because like you never know when it's gonna be the remix edition of Night Driving. Love it. I'm so excited to see DSN's big video. Should I just end the stream now and just go watch this video? Does it have to do with OG DSN, the action figure? I'm so curious. Okay, you guys. So first of all, hold on. First of all, that's right. It's time for a school dance party. That's right. If you guys are doing your dances, I'm doing my dance. I got my squirrel dancers. Actually, there's a picture. Okay, when I was trying to find like pictures, like of my tattoos and stuff, because I don't ever take pictures of myself, and I know that's something that other people do. I don't do that. Like I don't. So we have to do pictures of other people. So I actually went on Facebook, which I don't use ever, but I went on there just to try to see if I had pictures that someone had taken of like my F-holes, like my tattoo, and I was like, oh, look at that. Like, look at all these pictures. Anyway, there's pictures of me from Bonnaroo in like 2008, 2009. I think 2008, I think. At Bonnaroo, and I'm dancing like a squirrel, and somebody was taking pictures, and they're on Facebook. Dancing like a squirrel to some band. I don't know which band was playing at the time. Oh my God, it's a real thing. Daddy Shorthands is a handsome, agile person hanging behind up. Probably. Oh, B-dubs. That's cute. That's very good. So yeah, so I'm really excited to see it. And for anyone who didn't notice in the Discord, I added another, although y'all, it's been an active day today. I haven't even been on Discord, obviously, like we've talked about for a long time, but I did add this morning a channel thing for, I called it What We Do, and it's for people if you want to post anything about what your jobs are, or like what you do, you know what I mean? Like, I guess it doesn't have to be for money, you know? But what we do as in like, you know, that's kind of what I was thinking, you know? It's like, I guess hobbies could also be included. But I think it's fun. I mean, nobody has to share anything about their lives if they don't want to, but if you want to, you can. And, you know, it'll be fun. Oh, sweet. Thank you for that. That means I'll be able to find it even quicker. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see it. Y'all, I can't wait. How long is it? Just to watch it. I'm so excited. I love it. The Red Squirrel's party. 10 seconds. Okay. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna put y'all. I'm gonna put myself on mute. I'll leave the music playing. Well, let me go ahead and get my phone and all that to situate myself, and then when I have it ready, I'll mute it. Mute me. I'll mute me. Less than 22 seconds, says DSN. Excellent. We know how long that is, right? Let me pull up Discord. Okay, I can't wait. I'm so freaking excited. Oh, I do see here. I don't think this is what we're talking. I see more pictures of Tom. Tom has friends. Tom and Tom 2 and Tom 3. 3 Toms. Okay, but let me go find the video. All right. Okay, hold on. Okay, I found it. Let me mute myself. I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna keep the music going. Hold on. Oh my God, that is amazing. Oh my God, that is amazing. Okay, it took me a second. Hold on. I need to stop everything. Let me pause this music. Okay. It took me a second to figure out what was going on because it looks like, okay, when I first clicked on it, it looks like something from the internet, like a thing, like the way that it's like can play on a loop like that and it's like quick, like what do you call it? Like a meme, not a meme, a thing. And I was like, I didn't know it. It took me a second. I was first trying to figure out what I was looking at. And then I understood it because then I read the caption. And that is amazing. And the buddy is now a Mass State Trooper. That is incredible. Also, I love Dirty Dancing. Shout out to Dirty Dancing. Freaking love that movie. What a great movie. Freaking, I love that movie. I love it. That is so funny. And the horse mask. See, also, I think I saw the word horse, and that got me just momentarily. I was a little bit distracted because horse brain, you guys know the deal. But that is awesome. Oh my God, love it. Wow, that was in Boston. Holy shit. Wow. Hee. Y'all are great. And that's right. Candace has a really interesting job because she works for I'm gonna butcher this, Candace, so forgive me. But yeah, something like it. I remember it was like truck something with truck parts. Like I forget what the actual it was. I even said this at the time. I was like, this is a job I've never heard before, and a job I didn't even like know was like so it was something very specific. I'm gonna put music back on. But something for like ordering parts for a truck company or something. Yes, I do see the horse mask in the bottom of the corner. Yes. Yeah. If the horse mask was on, it would just been more distracting for me because I've been like, horse, what's happening? No, in the description, I saw my eyes are automatically drawn to things horse related. So like I saw the word horse before anything else, and automatically I was like, horse brain. And then I was like, wait, back to real life. Hold on. Get out of there, horse brain. It's a blessing and a curse, but really it's a blessing. I agree with Candace. You're a superior baby, DSN. I agree. Yes, 100%. There should be a remake of the movie with DSN playing baby. What do you guys think? That's funny. Right. No, I figured you meant Brian because of all the Brians. So many Brians. Too many Brians too little time. That's really funny, though. It's funny. That's so par for the course of what I would expect from DSN also, though. That's so wild that friend is now a trooper. DSN, have you talked to him about this case? I'm so curious. Is he like hiding out of embarrassment? Oh my God. Fucking hell. For a squirrel dance party. Get your dance on. Get your dance on. Get your dance on. Speaking of remix, there you go, StreamYard. Just picture all the squirrels with their bushy tails and they're doing their little dance. Cute. I love it. You guys, I had some really cute squirrels in my yard today. I was just beyond. And I also talked to them, of course, though, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, no, you've got to, dude, can you reach out to him, man? Like, does he want to, like, do an interview, like, on the show, on the stream? Like, I know, I have so many questions. We already have questions for him, but probably not tell him that part, or he'll be like, bye-bye. Just be like, hey, how's it going? Something along those lines. Or maybe ask him if he likes dance parties. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Candace. I knew I could count on you to fix me. Heavy truck repair shop. That's right. Yes. Well, so heavy truck, is this like Mack trucks? Like the, what do you call them? The, oh my God, clearly I don't know the name. The semis or whatever, right? Is that what that is? The most I know about trucks I learned from the Murdoch trial. So F-150 versus 250, that type of thing. Time for a small dance party. Okay, giant garbage trucks that size. Okay, cool. Interesting. That's a very specific size. And that's a good reference point, because when you think about it, it's like, wow, yeah, I can picture like exactly how big that is, but I feel like there's not that many trucks that you see that are that big. Like what else? What other trucks besides garbage trucks? Or is it like only garbage trucks? I can't really think of that many other trucks though. Who got a leaf? Oh, right, the friend. I know, right? Yeah. Fuck. Oh my God. Does he, hey, DSN, I already got questions in my brain. Does he know how to take measurements? Does he use red soul? I mean, we could be here all day with the questions, to be honest. But, okay. Hey guys, guess what? Special fun time surprise. So, we're going to do, y'all, I promised you guys I would do it, and here I am. I have it. It's experiment time. Are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? Get excited. Okay. I did an experiment today while I was doing a million other things. It was kind of insane. But, so here's my experiment. You guys ready? Practice that lift. I love that so much. It's important, right? Rehearsal, choreography. I freaking love it. I love it. It's so much. All right. So we are going to do a little experiment. Now, while this is not official in any way, shape, or form, I have all the confidence in the world that it's going to be, in many ways, more reliable than anything done in the investigation with the Karen Reed trial. So, what I have here is a car. So, it is quite a windy day today, which might play into some things because we're going to be remembering that it was a blizzard during the time. So, here's my taillight. So, first of all, the height. Now, obviously, this is a Prius and not an SUV. However, the taillights are going to be probably in a similar area. The point being, not nearly at the height of somebody's head when they're over 6 feet tall. This taillight here comes to like my hip area. So then let's just take a look here, because it looks like a solid piece of machinery, whatever the fuck. But if I knock it, you can tell it's very hollow, right? And like all of this stuff here, like it looks like it's like thick layers of glass or whatever. It's an illusion basically, because it's just plastic, right? And it's like they have that lining in there, which we saw it with Karen's vehicle when they took out the taillight, and you could see the inside was all silvery. It's that lining to give it, it's like a mirror effect where it's reflective. So that light, even without it being on, light reflects, right? So while it looks like there's a lot of shit in there, it's not, it's just hollow. So yeah, so that's what we got. Now also what we got is a hair. And the testimony was that they measured the hair at 7/8 of an inch. So I pulled a hair from my head so I could have the root tip on it, because they talk about that. I don't know if that's going to make a difference in terms of how it attaches to the vehicle, but
I measured it I cut it, because I have really long hair, I cut it short to 7/8 of an inch. So it's just the very tip of my hair. So if you imagine a short piece of hair from somebody's head, right? Like it's like that, but it's the same length as what they have in evidence as far as the hair on the vehicle. It's obviously, it's hot, whatever. I can't duplicate the temperature, but we do know that there would have been some sort of moisture on her car because of the fact that there had been some snow. So in order to duplicate that, I've got just a spray bottle here with some water. It was a vertical panel where the hair was. And I would say that, you know, while for hers, it was under the tail light on the bumper. My bumper is curved. So I'm actually going to go right next to it because this is more of a vertical surface here. So I'm just going to spray. Sorry, it's dirty. It's pollen. So I'm going to spray a little bit of water, good amount of water, just to be sure it's wet. Okay. Now I've got my little hair. If it'll focus. There we go. That's the root tip, I think, there. So I'm just going to take it, and it's actually...
Super Planner Girl says the defense should call you. I'm an expert in squirrel investigations. Remember there were times in Murdoch when we had certain presentations on there? What was it? I forget which ones was. Oh, you know what? I think it was when I fucking called Sunrise. Do you guys remember that? That was insane. That whole day, that morning, I'll never forget that morning. That morning is when I discovered the fucking Sunrise detox place was surrounded by railroads. I fell over. And then I called the Sunrise detox place. Anyway, there were probably some other videos that we did as well from that series, but I was like, Squirrely Investigations LLC. So yeah, this was fun. I did my best to make it as accurate as I could.
Actually curved, which is good because it's kind of curved.
Wait till you see this.
And I'm just going to place it.
It ends up looking just like
That's pretty good in terms of duplicating. Now, I'm not going to press it on. It's
crazy, right? It looks just like it.
I put it there, and now you can actually see how parts of it, I don't know if you, it's pretty good at duplicating it though, isn't it? So it's kind of a backward C shape. It's on there. I would imagine that because it's more humid in the summertime, I would imagine that moisture would last longer than when it was dry. But anyway, so there's the hair, and we took a look at the taillight already. But yes, what I'm going to do now,
Super Planner Girl, we are professionals. Yes, we are indeed.
Is that hair's there. I'm going to drive over to the grocery store, the Harris Teeter, which is literally right across the street from me. Right.
Shout out to the Harris Teeter.
That direction. And it's a very short drive. I'm going to drive to the grocery store and come home, and then we're going to see if that hair is still there.
What do you guys think? Real quick, before the big reveal, what do you guys think? Is the hair going to be there or not? It's just across the street. Just across the street. It's walking distance, right? But, you know, I've tried to explain, actually, because people that live like in Europe and shit are like really confused by it. Like, it's so close, but that road is not pedestrian friendly. Like, there's not a place to cross it. Like, there's a lot of lanes of traffic. Like, you would just get mowed down. So like, it's just not, there's not a place to cross that. But yes, yeah, it will not be there. No way. Okay, let's see.
Y'all, I just got back from the Harris Teeter. 2-second drive across the street. There's a slight breeze. It was a little bit windier earlier, but it's been on and off. Anyway, take note of what is no longer here. The hair is gone. So, yeah. Also, I just wanted to say real quick, my car has damage to it that I did not do, and I have no idea how it got there, including this is pretty significant right here. That like chipped the paint, like kind of dented it, and then there's like minor scrapes and shit. But all of this I did not do. So I would imagine this is when my car was parked in a parking lot somewhere and somebody hit it with something. Just saying.
So that, I wanted to mention that because, like, look at that right there where it's paused. That looks almost like very much identical to what's on the back of Karen's car, where there's like it looks just like that. It's like a dent with some paint missing. It's very similar. And it's like, yeah, they clearly, right? I mean, this happened at some point. I didn't do it. And it's just cars get dinged. But what I will say is that when there's a collision with even when people hit animals, right? As much as I hate that, that's awful. The damage is so substantial. Anyway, again, it's so easy to crack a taillight. It's so easy to dent it. It's so easy to chip the paint. Cars are not invincible or whatever, obviously. So it's just, there's a lot of problems, right? Obviously. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was, I really was happy to do that and get the little hair and measure it out and, get the little spray bottle of water and, right. See, super perfect. There you go. Super Planet Girl says, I had 5K worth of damage for collision with a deer. The deer left the scene. There you go. Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, that's a great example. Yep. Yeah. I hope the deer's okay. So, all right, let us jump on into the recap. It's recap time. What a cute squirrel. Squangwin.
It's a house.
Do the deer have insurance? Okay, week 6 recap. Here we go.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All parties having anything to do before the honorable first justice doubly.
I can't. I don't know why I thought that. Did you guys think that was funny? It's almost different. Every day you never know what to expect with this, right? Because when you have the other guys, they do it a little bit. They all have their own flavor, if you will. But the way he just had that face and he's just let's just watch that again. And he's like, there's silence, and then I don't know. It was just good. It was just good. Let's watch again.
It's a house.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. All parties having anything to do before the Honorable First Justice Beverly Finoni, now sitting in the Dedham Superior Court within the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth and this good court. Thank you.
No, I don't know who that is beside him. I don't know who that dude is. Well, that's cool. There's Lally. Fucking hell. I don't know who that dude is, but he's there every morning. I have no idea.
Anytime you're ready.
All right, y'all ready for this?
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
It's Kevin O'Hara, O-H-A-R-A.
And how many employees, sir?
I'm a lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long in total have you been a member of the state police?
Just over 22 years.
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant?
4.5 years.
And what is your current assignment within the Massachusetts State Police?
I'm the team commander for the State Police Special Emergency Response Team, which is also known as CERT.
And Lieutenant O'Hara, when you arrived on scene, where did you park in relation to the house, or where was Trooper Bousselet in relation to the house?
Trooper Bousselet was just past the driveway of the house, so just north of the driveway. I parked almost at the end of the driveway of 34 Fairview.
And you recall at some point your attention was directed to an area with a flagpole and a fire hydrant, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall which direction either or both of your vehicle?
By the way, fun trivia fact, Dirty Dancing, I believe, was filmed. Okay, don't quote me on this. Blame Schmommers if this is wrong. I remember being a kid and we watched that movie and stuff. And I remember my mom telling me that movie was filmed on, what was it? Smith Mountain Lake, which is in North Carolina. So I know, yeah, this is great, right? It's either North Carolina or Virginia. But if it's Virginia, it's very close to North Carolina. But my aunt and uncle from England, this is gonna sound insane. They've moved to Greensboro recently, but before they did that, they still lived in England. They bought a lake house on Smith Mountain Lake years ago. And I guess part of the reason was because Dirty Dancing was filmed there. But that's what my mom said. So I don't know. I haven't fact checked that, but anyway, yeah, I was just remembering that little random trivia thing. No, they do have a CSI. It's like that. That's what these people are. That's what he does. Because what they say is that the regular police force that are not the state police, like your Canton PD, for example, he ends up talking about how they don't do any of this shit. Like they're not trained for crime scenes and stuff. Yeah, because that's and like all the forensic people that we hear from the same day as this fellow, and then that we heard from all week, they're all with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab. I think it's literally what it's called. So.
Somebody's vehicle were facing when you parked in that area of the driveway?
We're facing away from the
Now I just want to watch Dirty Dancing.
flagpole originally. Eventually, we moved Trooper Bousselet's vehicle back towards the flagpole. Just we wanted some extra headlights to light up the scene, the area we would be working in.
Now, Lieutenant Taillight, was he on the scene when you arrived?
He was not.
And at some point, did you reach out to him?
Yes, I gave him a call. He stated he was just leaving. Canton PD would be on scene in about 5 minutes. That was probably around 5 o'clock.
Now, as far as
so that's the
how
state
did you-
emergency response is CERT. That's a separate group within the Massachusetts State Police, from what I understand. Y'all let me know if I don't understand that correctly, because it does get a little confusing with all the acronyms. But CERT, I'll put it in the chat. CERT is the State Evidence Response Team. From what I understand, they are like a subsection within the Massachusetts State Police. And I don't actually remember what specifically their point is. But like this dude, this is the dude. This dude is the dude who would be doing the crime scene shit. So
parked in front of him as far as the residences on that street? Who, if anyone else, as far as neighbors or anything like that, or people from the house that you see outside the house while at any point in time?
We didn't see anyone outside the houses. A resident of 34 Fairview exited briefly after we were first on scene, but that was the only person we saw.
Oh, state police. Sorry, I've got you guys blame DSN. All I can think about is Dirty Dancing. Like literally, I'm just like my brain's like I'm like trying to like get back into Boston, but I'm just like Dirty Dancing. DSN, I blame you. State Police Emergency Response. Huh. That's interesting because we've not heard. So is that different from CERT? Let me just fucking back it up, because I don't understand how they could have both.
Trooper Bousselet was just past the driveway of the house, so just north of the driveway. I parked almost at the end of the. I'm a lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police.
And how long in total have you been a member of the state police?
Just over 22 years.
Long time.
And how long have you held the rank of lieutenant?
4.5 years.
And what is your current assignment within the Massachusetts State Police?
I'm the team commander for the State Police Special Emergency Response Team, which is also known as CERT.
There it is, CERT. There you go.
When you arrived on
Did you hear that? It's CERT. Okay, so it's CERT. It's from CERT. So CERT is the same. That's CERT. Hey, Kitsmits, I didn't look in the Discord to see, but did you see DSN's video? Because it's amazing.
scene, where did you park in relation to the house, and where was Trooper Bousselet in relation to that?
Trooper Bousselet was just past the driveway of the house, so just north of the driveway. I parked almost at the end of the driveway of 34 Fairview.
And you recall, at some point, your attention was directed to an area with a flagpole and fire hydrant, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall which direction either or both of your vehicle and Bousselet's vehicle were facing when you parked in that area of the driveway?
We were facing away from the flagpole originally. Eventually, we moved Trooper Bousselet's vehicle back towards the flagpole. Just we wanted some extra headlights to light up the scene, the area we would be working in.
Now, Lieutenant Taillight, was he on the scene when you arrived?
He was not.
And at some point, did you reach out to him?
Yes, I gave him a call. He stated he was just leaving. Canton PD would be on scene in about 5 minutes. That was probably around 5 o'clock.
Now, as far as the house that
That's okay, kids. It's all good. DSN's video is like 10 seconds or less, and it's in the thread called What We Do. It's definitely worth checking out. I actually put myself on mute, even though there's no sound. I didn't know if there was or wasn't gonna be sound, but I put myself on mute earlier at the beginning so I could watch it actually while I was already live. Yeah, but yeah, so we heard he said he was from CERT, so
You were parked in front of.
right. That's what I said. That's what I said. I think there was confusion as to what it was called specifically, because Random Girl said it was the state police emergency response. But I mean, state emergency. But he said CERT. That's what I heard. State emergency. He actually says the special emergency response team known as CERT, right?
As far as the residences on that street, who, if anyone else, as far as neighbors or anything like that, or people from the house that you see outside the house while at any point in time?
We didn't see anyone outside the houses. A resident of 34 Fairview exited briefly after we were first on scene. That was the only person we saw.
Fucking weird, right? Who do you think that was? Brian Albert Sr.?
And exited and came.
There you go.
To where you were, or where did that?
No, he was, if you look at the house, there's, you could consider two front doors,
Just
one
weird as fuck.
one closer to the garage, which would maybe be a mudroom or a den. Adult male exited from that door, had a hooded sweatshirt on. He asked us if we were here for what had happened earlier. We said yes, and he walked back inside the house.
Okay, y'all, I'm so curious. What do you guys think? What type of fucking question is that? What type of question is that? If somebody leaves the house, there's law enforcement out there. There's law enforcement. Are you guys, and he goes, are you guys here for what happened earlier? What the fuck? And then goes back inside? I don't even.
Now, as far as the, mentioned a bit about the snow, but as far as the roadway conditions of the area where you were in, what if anything did you know or observe in regard to the roadway and sort of how it had been treated as plowed prior to your plow?
The plow had really only cleared the center of the road. There was a good 3 to 4 foot snow drift coming off each side of the road. So maybe enough for 2 vehicles to pass, but not cleared, cleared curb to curb.
And as far as Lieutenant Tully arriving on scene around 5, at some point did he, what if anything, where did he direct?
He had instructed us that the death investigation involved a motor vehicle. He told us where the motor vehicle was believed to have been parked and wanted us to search from that area south towards the flagpole fire hydrant.
Now, as far as this type of search was concerned, had you, what if any experience did you have doing this type of search in these types of conditions?
In blizzard conditions, we've really never done evidence searches like this. We've done missing person searches we've gone out to, but for evidence searches, nothing like this. Something, if a scene could be secured, we really wouldn't respond in a situation like this unless we really needed to.
Now, as far as the search that your team does, if you could...
Right. Right, yeah.
Typical...
Yeah, it's like, are you guys here because of what happened earlier? No, we're here for something. It almost makes me think too, like, what else are they doing that's illegal? Like, what have they got going? What else are they hiding, right? It's like, what a weird fucking question. But yeah, thank you for clarifying, Random Girl. Thank you.
Non-typical as far as conducting a search of an area that had already been gone over by another agency or by someone else within the state?
Yeah, we're a stage 2 response, so pretty much every search we've ever done has been previously searched. We're never really the first persons to search an area.
And as far as your training is concerned as it relates to this particular search, what if any sort of methodical approach?
What if any? I'm lonely.
What
if any?
We gridded off or marked off the area Lieutenant Tully thought would be the best area for us to search. So we had a starting point and an end point. Once all the members got on scene.
I will say, what do you guys think about this dude? We need to compliment him, by the way. I love his tie and I love his shirt color. I think it looks really nice together. I would call that the color of that tie, like maybe like an ice slate blue. What about the shirt? The shirt's a very nice color. It's like the color of the sky on a very clear day. I like that it has a bit of like a metallic-y sheen to it or whatever versus like matte. It's very nice. It's almost like a periwinkle maybe kind of thing, but very nice. But what did you guys think about his testimony? Like, I will say, to his credit, he didn't have any freaking, he's like one of the only people, if not the only law enforcement officer that we've heard from that has no ties to anybody here, right? Like, he's not, I don't think he's from there, but he doesn't seem to know anybody. Like, he didn't know any of these detectives, and he didn't know the Albert family. And he really seems to just kind of, again, he seems more neutral, right? Like, he kind of showed up and did his job. Thank you, can't. Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Yes, entirely. Remember, I promised you guys. I was like, whatever the voice happens, like whatever it sounds like, I was like, it's not going to sound like Lally, and that's not the goal. But I appreciate that. Remember, this is how he sounds in my head when I hear him talk. That's awesome. It so does, and that makes sense, right? Like, I guess it's subconsciously that's where that came from, and that makes sense, doesn't it? The screeching and the repetitive stuff all over it again. That's hilarious. Oh, Super Planet Girl says that this detective does not seem untoward. Yeah. I mean, and I appreciate too, he's very clear about his role, right? He doesn't try to take responsibility for other things. He doesn't try to deny responsibility, but it is clear that Trooper Tully, or Lieutenant, I can't even fucking remember at this point. Tully, we'll say, Mr. Tully was in charge of all this, right? And that he was supposed to be in charge. He was in charge. He was supposed to be in charge, and so he took command from him, or what have you. Lieutenant, it's Lieutenant Tully, right?
We set up a line search, or what we would call a grid search, which again would just be a slow, methodical search with all of us working in unison, moving through the area.
And about how big an area was it that you initially sort of set out to search?
It was just over 50 feet, I believe, from the front
agree.
door, which is the left door, looking at the house from the street to the fire hydrant. I believe it was 59 feet.
Was that length or width?
That is length.
And as far as the width of the area, you were searching about what kind of area were you searching?
It's about 3 to 4 feet was the snowdrift coming off the curb.
Now, as far as the information that you received prior to conducting the search, were there any items that were specific?
Right. It's not supposed to sound like him.
Items that you might be looking for.
It's how he sounds in my head.
What, if anything, was giving you in relation?
Just like my Elaine voice.
Lieutenant Tully had informed us that the victim in this
Remember,
case
y'all,
was
the Elaine voice did not sound like Elaine. It just happened because as I was kept reading the sidebars and hearing her in the trial, as I was putting that together, that's how her voice sounded to me in my head. It's the same deal, Lally.
struck by a vehicle. He believed there would be broken pieces of taillight in the area. He also stated the victim was missing his sneaker. So he asked us to search for both of those items.
And sir, at some point, did you ask Lieutenant Tully any questions about the vehicle in question or anything in relation to that?
After we'd found one or two of the pieces of the taillight, I asked him if we knew how much damage was to the taillight, or if he had a photo that we could get of the taillight.
And what, if anything, did he tell you?
He told us at that time the vehicle was being towed back to Canton PD, so he did not have a photo to show us.
And at any point, did he make any reference to...
By the way,
along with the tow at Canton PD?
so this dude has like this normal face that he makes. Like it's like part of his baseline, right? So just when we see him make that face and cross, I don't think it means anything. I don't even know what to call it, but we'll see it here in a second, I'm sure, because he does it a lot. I'm curious what you guys... I don't think it means anything. I think it's part of his baseline, like I said, but I just don't know what to call the face. Like, it's not a frown, it's not a smile. It's just like what he does with his mouth.
He said Sergeant Buchanan and Trooper Proctor were following the vehicle back to Canton PD.
Right there, that face. Yeah, see, it's like he automatically does that. But also, DS then read my mind because I was just thinking about bringing up the sneaker. I was just thinking about that. And then I was like, well, maybe I should wait until we get to those pictures. But yeah, that's, and it's funny because we were talking about these sneakers before we knew that there were two different colors involved. I guess it was on the last recap. And I was saying, yeah, this just doesn't make sense because, I was saying how, like, people know that, like, when you get hit by a car, you lose both your shoes. So the one shoe coming off doesn't make any fucking sense. And, like, the fact that, I don't know. Yeah, we were just talking about that, and in my mind, I can't remember exactly the way I phrased it, but it was like I was going through the different options. And it was sort of like, well, the only option is that they must have had the other shoe, and that they, for some reason, they didn't want to turn it over or put it with the crime scene. Okay, yeah. So we'll see it when we get there, but yeah, it's interesting.
You mentioned an alert that was sent out to troopers as far as to bring certain items. Can you describe for the jury sort of the process and what, if any, tools or implements?
So like I said, we moved Trooper Boussolet's vehicle to face the scene to give us some extra, using headlights for extra lighting for the scene. All the team members also put on a headlamp, which would basically just be like a hiking headlamp. We all had shovels. We had a couple of rakes, the smaller garden rakes, just to kind of help us sift through the snow. And I also had a small push broom to move the snow around as well.
I will say this much.
Sort of headlamps and moving the vehicle.
Well, for whatever reason, people in this area are, again, for whatever reason, not at all prepared for winter. They are very well prepared for autumn because they've got leaf blowers, they've got rakes, they've got garden push brooms, whatever the fuck that is. They're ready for the leaves. If only they could be as prepared for the snow, right?
As far as the headlights on the area that you were searching, what's the visibility and what was the lighting conditions around that area at that time we were conducting?
It was poor lighting. There really wasn't much as far as what we felt enough for street lighting, but with the headlamps, we had decent visibility.
So when you first arrived on scene about 4:53 p.m. or so, was it dark out there?
Yes, it was, sir.
And it remained dark while you were still on scene?
Yes, sir.
And in the area that you were looking, in your testimony, there wasn't much overhead sort of ambient lighting or street lighting in that area, as far as you recall?
Nothing that really helped the search.
So the area that you were searching was an area of the fire hydrant, is that correct?
We started almost directly across from the front door and moved south towards Chapman Street, towards the fire hydrant.
And to be clear, as far as the area that you were searching with shovels and the other different implements to sort of sift through the snow, where was your focus as far as the street versus the front lawn?
Our right flank was on the curb, and then we moved out across the street from there. So we were lined almost shoulder to shoulder as we moved south through the area we were searching.
You're primarily searching or entirely searching along the roadway, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And as far as some point did you, through the course of sort of shoveling and the removal of snow from that area, did you approach or come in contact with the area of grass in front lawn?
We did, as one of the members who was working along the curb, he started to clear some of the grass upon the front lawn, yes, sir.
What, if any, issues did you and the other encounter when you got to sort of the grass?
It was very difficult to clear the snow. I don't think we had very good visibility on what we were moving, even with the push broom and the rake. It was very difficult to definitively say we'd cleared the lawn properly. So we didn't focus too much of our efforts on that area.
Now, you referenced that only 7 members of your unit were able to respond because one got stuck in the snow at the end of the street. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And that had some impact as far as documentation of the scene. Is that correct?
Correct. Normally on a search, if I'm the overall, as a team leader, I would run what you would consider a command post or be the incident commander for CERT. I would stay behind the line and kind of document our efforts, but because this was such a small search area, it wasn't really an issue because we weren't breaking people off into teams. No one was out of my sight line, and we had multiple detectives on scene that were able to fill that role for me.
And so to that point, as far as the 7 members from your unit, in addition to the 7 members from your unit, who, if anyone else, was present during the course of that?
I believe there was 5 other members. I believe there were only 2 that I recognized from the state police, so I'm not sure who the other 3, if they were Canton detectives or Canton patrolmen, but they were all dressed in plain clothes.
And as far as documentation, for the scene, what if anything was done with reference to that? In my opinion.
As we began to find evidence, I spoke to Lieutenant Tully and just confirmed that he was going to document everything we were recovering via photograph and evidence log.
As far as documented photos taken by Lieutenant Tully,
Yes, they were, sir.
and the items that were photographed, were they photographs prior to anyone sort of touching them or moving them or placing them, other than those sort of related to the search effort?
Correct. As soon as we found anything deemed as evidence, we stopped our search
Nice.
efforts until
Yes,
they were
sir.
documented by Lieutenant Tully.
And in reference to your search efforts, what
In reference to I'm Lally.
value did you and your team locate?
I found multiple pieces of red and clear taillight.
And where were they in relation to sort of the grid or the area that you had set up?
They were on the street in between the flagpole and the fire hydrant.
And sir, in addition to the pieces of red and clear plastic taillight that you uncovered, you know approximately how many pieces of that you were able to locate on that day?
I believe maybe 6 or 7 pieces.
And how big or how small or did they range in size as far as the pieces that you located?
There was 3 larger pieces, 2 red, 1 clear, and then a couple of smaller pieces.
In addition to the pieces of red and clear plastic taillight that were recovered during the search process, what if any other items were located?
What if any? I'm
We
Lally.
found a sneaker.
And where was that sneaker located?
Your friends do.
In reference to the scene, your search
There you
efforts,
go.
in reference
Called
to
it.
pieces of clear and red plastic.
It was same location. Generally, it was in between the flagpole and the
I'm Lally.
fire hydrant. The sneaker was flush up against the curb and it was upside down. I think we had found 1 piece of taillight prior to the sneaker, and then after we found the sneaker, we found a few more additional pieces of taillight.
Now, with reference to the sneaker and each of those pieces of red and clear plastic, where were they in relation to snow that was being?
I need to make, see now I've got an idea. Now I need to get like, to do like the thing, get like, Iago, from Aladdin, like the parrot, like, and do like, I don't use Photoshop, but you know what I mean? Place Lolly's head, or if anyone else wants to do it, feel free. Put Lolly's head on Iago and make a Lolly parrot. Oh my God, I need that in my life so much. And I could actually I could do this thing. I could do, whenever it's Lolly voice time and there's squawking happening, I could do it like I do this. I could do an overlay for the Lolly parrot. Okay, and now I have to do this. Has to happen. This has to happen.
Go through and why that, where were they in relation to?
Road trip crew, hold on.
Can you repeat the end of that, sir?
Sure.
They're always ready for fun.
With reference to each of the items of evidence that you've been talking about, whether it be sneaker or the
Sorry. I was just thinking the road trip crew. I said they're always ready for fun, and I was thinking all their bags are packed, and then I was like thinking, hold on, now I have to do it. Hold on, let me pull them back up. Okay, like, all their bags are packed, they're ready to go. Right, road trip crew. Anyway.
the red and clear plastic. Where were they in relation to the snow that you were digging into? Where were they in relation to the asphalt surface of the road?
Close to the curb. As we started digging originally, the snow drift, the snowpack was pretty solid from where the plow had kind of cleared to. So once we were able to move through that, we started getting into fresh, undisturbed snow, started moving through that, which was a lot easier to move at that point. And all the items we found were close to the curb.
And so my question also, sir, is sort of how deep within the snow that you were digging was each of those items?
They were all found at ground level.
And as far as the area that you were searching, beyond sort of snow drifts,
They even talk about how deep the snow was, though.
plowing towards the middle of the road, how would you characterize that snow as far as observing footprints?
How would you characterize that
tire tracks or anything
snow?
in that area where you were digging through and finding these items?
No, we did not see anything, sir. Like I said, it was all fresh, undisturbed snow once we got past where the plow had cleared up to.
How deep was it though?
Now, as far as this search being conducted sort of physically, you mentioned there's some sort of line that's set up, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Can you describe to the jury sort of how that line was set up? What were the different functions in different parts of the line, and where were you in relation?
So like I stated, we had what we consider our right flank stood on the curb closest to the house.
y'all!
And then we
Flank!
moved left into the
I didn't even catch that in the trial. Flank makes another appearance. Amazing.
street as we dug the snow out.
Nice.
It was originally inspected as they would pull their shovel out, make sure they didn't have anything in their shovel to the best of their ability. Then they would bring it out to the street. I was the left flank. They would dump it in the street, and I would sift through it at the end just to make sure there was no evidence that had come out to the street. Once I was positive nothing was in that snow, I would toss it onto the other side of the street. And we just continued that process as we moved south through that grid.
And the depth of the snow that you were digging through, how did that change, or how was that any different from sort of one portion of the section to another?
Where the plow had touched, clear to, would say that was probably about a 3+ foot in height. But as we moved into the snow itself, getting closer to the curb, that was in level with the rest of the area, what was on the front lawn, which was on the neighbor's lawn. So probably maybe 18 inches of snow.
That's not that much snow.
And sir, as far as this
Happy to see
search
you.
was concerned, about how long a period of time was it?
That's a great
months,
point. No,
or as far
absolutely.
as searching?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so flank, yeah. Right. No, it does make sense in this term for sure. I'm so happy you're here, Fender. By the way, for those who are just now joining us, we had a stream before this. I did like a back-to-back situation, all fancy like, and it teleported everybody. Actually, DSN on the way over ran into Chad on the way. But we read the motion that they discussed at the end of the court day on Thursday, yesterday. We actually went over that motion, so that was a separate stream. And then at the beginning of this stream, we started with me. Conducted a little experiment with, I kind of went especially for people who don't drive cars, Fender, I'm looking at you, my friend. Like I go around, I show you the tail light, and we get up close and personal with the tail light, and then I do a little experiment with a hair. So you guys can definitely check that out. I think what I'll do is I might even just upload it as like a video of itself too. Just like, a standalone video as well, just because some people might want to watch it. I don't know. But yeah, so we did a little experiment there. And yes, also let me do Fender. Nightbot has a little message for you.
And how long the process was done?
After Lieutenant Tully showed up, kind of informed us where we were going to search, we moved Trooper Boussolet's vehicle at 5:20, and that's when the rest of the team started to
I
show.
have to say this because it's going to be, it's bothering. Every time I hear Trooper Boussolet, all I can think of is Beaujolais, which is a wine region.
Up right around 5:21, 5:24. A couple other members with extended response time showed up a little bit after that, but all members were on scene by 5:41. We had already started the process before they had all arrived on scene, and we were complete by 6:15. We started to wrap up and clear the area.
And as far as the wrapping up, how was that decision arrived at, and sort of what led to that decision?
So after we found the sneaker and a couple additional pieces of taillight, we moved south for, I'd say, over 5 feet, maybe closer to 8 to 10 feet, without finding any other pieces of evidence. So Lieutenant Tully and I had a conversation. He was very satisfied that we had found everything we were going to locate
Satisfied?
at that time, and we decided to suspend the search.
Did I say hammer?
And what was...
Are you asking me if I said hammer? I didn't say hammer. That I know of, anyway.
as far as you were concerned?
I don't recall.
Weather conditions and everything that had gone on, which was located at that one. What was sort of your thought process in relation to any sort of continuation of the search at some later time?
I told Lieutenant Tully, we'll do a debrief at the end. We'll go over probability of detection, how I feel, whether we would have found everything that was there. I told him that there was a good chance we did not find everything. I said if you wanted us to come back in the daylight, which would give us better lighting to search, or after a couple of days, the weather was supposed to warm up. If you wanted us to come back after there was some snow melt, just to reach out to me, and we would come back.
And as far as suspending the search at that point, was that something that was your decision independent of Lieutenant Tully?
No, that was in consultation with Lieutenant Tully.
As far as the securing of evidence, how was that done? Generally speaking, in relation to searches that your unit conducts, and how was it done in this specific case?
So we don't recover evidence. We'll stop and halt our search. Sometimes we've been waiting for crime scene to show up for 2 hours before we've continued to search. So once we found the first piece of taillight, again, I conferred with Lieutenant Tully, asked him if he was documenting it and recovering everything. He stated he was. Once we felt comfortable that he had done that properly, we then continued the search.
So once you get sort of that initial parameters as far as where and what you may be looking for from Lieutenant Tully, is Lieutenant Tully directing your search efforts in any way, shape, or form?
He is not, no.
And is that typical as far as how searches will be conducted?
Correct, yes. Yeah, they let me run the search the way I deem best.
And sir, in addition to photographs, what if anything else was done to document this?
We had one of our members use a handheld GPS, which we use a Garmin 64ST, and he marked each item we found, which we then can upload later to a map, which we did later that evening.
So with respect to the 3 pieces of taillight that were marked on the diagram, excuse me, were those the larger pieces, smaller pieces, or something?
They were the larger pieces, sir.
So Lieutenant O'Hara, what you have up on the screen before you, is that what you have as Exhibit 134? Oh, I'm sorry, 111.
Hold on, might be backwards here. Yes, 111, sir.
And if you could describe to the jury, and if you, using that laser pointer, what if anything of significance to occur with this particular photo?
This is the flagpole in the front of the house. As you move south, this appears to be one of the pieces of taillight that we recovered.
And sir, Ms. Gilman, if you could zoom back out a little. So Lieutenant, during the course of the process that you're conducting this search, what was the weather doing, and is that something that you can observe in this photo?
It was still snowing, and you can see some of the snowflakes falling here by the flagpole.
And as far as the wind was concerned, what if any impact did the wind have on the course of the search that you were conducting?
It was windy, but it really didn't impact how we were searching through the area.
And sir, if I could direct your attention to the next photograph on top. This is sort of a different perspective of the same area that you were talking about in the last photograph, is that correct?
Correct.
If I could have the next photograph, 113. Again, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as 113?
Yes, it is.
And again, sort of a closer perspective to the piece of taillight that you were referring to, is that correct?
Correct.
Again, Lieutenant, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you?
Yes, it is.
And again, a closer up image of that same piece of taillight as it was observed when you covered it.
Correct. And you can see right here to the left of the taillight, that is the molding of a shovel. So this piece of taillight was picked up with one of the team members' shovels, and as they overturned it, you can see the taillight came up as they were searching through the area. And this is kind of the markings of the shovel itself. You can see the piece of taillight that we recovered, and again, this is kind of the overturned snow from the shovel, and again, seeing the markings from the shovel from where it was overturned.
And the next photograph is going. This particular piece, is this one of the larger, or is this one of the smaller pieces that you were describing earlier in the test?
This is one of the larger pieces, sir.
And as far as length, size of it, if you know, how much would you estimate it, how big it was?
I guess a couple of inches, but I didn't measure it, sir.
What a crazy person.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photograph. And Lieutenant, if you could describe to the jury sort of what is depicted or what, if anything, is significant to observe in this photo.
So this is the CERT members working through the area again, working on as a line through the grid formation. One of the things we stress is your critical separation, making sure you're close enough to each other that you won't miss a piece of evidence.
Right,
Too
I
far
know.
apart.
Right.
You will miss that a lot of times before searches. We will.
Yeah, so that's funny. It's so funny too, right? Like with Trooper Buchanan talking about driving by the house. It's just like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Take an item of similar sized item that we're looking for, and we'll space out because this was such a condensed search area. We just had the team members stand almost shoulder to shoulder as they searched through the area.
Of what was actually happening. Like, wow.
And again, sir, if you could
What a
describe to the
luxury.
jury sort of what we're looking at or what, if anything, of significance you're observing.
What about me? I'm lying.
Maybe a little difficult to see from a distance, but right here, this is the sneaker that we recovered.
And as far as the area of the curbing that you indicated that the sneaker was recovered in relation to, where is that?
It's flush up against the curb.
Again, I'm sorry, using the laser.
Oh, I apologize, sir. Right
Don't
here, this is the
apologize.
curbing right here.
Everybody always apologizes
Photograph is
for
going.
Wally's fault.
Is there similar, as far as this photograph is concerned, what, if anything, do you observe in that photograph? What was it?
It's a closer photo of the sneaker. Sneaker's in the bottom right down here.
Yeah. I must have commented on that during when we co-watched this live because I remember specifically typing a timestamp for that. I remember typing a timestamp for that. So it must have been for a live day of trial. I remember typing a timestamp for that because I thought it was that noteworthy about the evidence revealing itself.
Next photograph. And again, what, if anything, are we looking at in this photograph, sir?
Again, you're looking at the sneaker. This is just a closer zoomed in photo. And this would be the curbing right here.
And the sneaker, as it's portrayed in this particular photograph, is that as it was when it was recovered?
Yes, sir.
The next photograph is Gilman.
Yeah, it was very weird wording. And he said it twice. So on two separate occasions, spaced out between other things. Like there's other shit in between. So it was just made it even weirder the second
The
time.
other side of that sneaker, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
There's the
Does
sneaker.
that fit sort of its relation to the curve that you were describing earlier in your testimony?
Yes, sir. You can see the curbing right here.
The next
I mean,
photograph.
that's not really a curve though. Plus, we know they said at the beginning.
As far as the sneaker was concerned, when it's recovered,
It does
where was the
black
snow
bottom,
in relation
because-
to? Was it on, around?
100% with the black
Where
bottom.
was the snow in relation to?
Yeah.
The sneaker was completely buried. It wasn't until we started digging through the snow that we found the sneaker.
The next photograph. Ms. Gill?
Yeah.
And this is how it was discovered, is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Or how it appeared when it was discovered?
Yes, sir.
Next photograph, Ms. Gill.
Now I can't tell what's going on in that picture.
Next photograph, Ms. Gill.
Weird. Weird.
And sir, in this photograph, if you could, using the laser pointer, draw the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observed.
This is Exhibit 125. Is the photo I have in front of me. This would be might be difficult for them to see, but this is a clear piece of the taillight right here.
And again, sir, what is depicted in this Exhibit 126?
See a little closer zoomed in version of the clear piece of taillight that was recovered.
And as far as what the area of snow surrounding, does that sort of depict the depth at which that piece of clear plastic taillight was discovered?
Correct, sir.
The next photograph, 127. What, if anything, are we looking at in this one?
A different angle of the piece of clear taillight that was recovered.
The next photograph is Exhibit 128. Sir, if you could describe to the jury what is depicted in Exhibit 128.
It's difficult to see, but there's a piece of clear taillight right here. I can see with the photo in front of me, but I'm not sure if the jurors can see it from that distance, but there is a clear piece of taillight in this location.
Again, if you could demonstrate to the jury what, if anything, is significance you observed.
Again, there's a piece of clear taillight right in this location.
Different piece of taillight than the one you were referring to previously in the prior exhibits.
Yes, sir.
Next photograph 130. What, if anything, what are we looking at in this?
Again, there's a piece of clear taillight. Again, it might be difficult from the distance for the jurors, but it's in this location here.
What, if anything, is depicted in exhibit 130?
There's a larger piece of red taillight located on the ground in this location.
Okay.
What, if anything, are we looking at in 130?
It's a
Yeah.
closer photo of the same piece of
So did I. So did I. It's weird though, right? I did see that. Yeah. Right. I agree. Yeah. I think you do. Maybe you guys heard me say that too. But yeah, I was like, wait, what? Although the snow, it did look like it maybe could have been obscured, or like the snow was on it, making it do that. Also, question for Super Planner Girl: do you have a fourth orchid yet?
taillight right here located on the ground.
I hope you come back, Bender. Love you.
Now, what, if anything, is depicted in 130?
I don't see anything.
There's a small piece of taillight, I believe, in this location right here.
So lastly, exhibit 134.
I know.
It's a small piece of taillight right on the ground right here in this location.
Thank you very much. Now, Lieutenant O'Hara, would you have before you the first diagram 135? Is that what's up on the screen?
Yeah, because
Yes, it is, sir.
at this point they wouldn't have known what it was, and we've heard that with the other evidence that if it's not been tested yet, right? Because eventually we hear apparent, like apparent glass, apparent hair, apparent plastic. So it is interesting that you're right. The languaging is important because it does sound like he was making that assumption.
Now, you mentioned something earlier in your testimony just now in regard to sort of items being found in close proximity, creating some overlay with the GPS system. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
And you mentioned range of error. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Can you describe what the range of error is and how that impacts sort of how it's depicted in this particular diagram?
So for GPS's typical range of error on a clear day is up to 16 feet. Obviously, we didn't have a clear day. We had atmospheric conditions, cloudy, snowy conditions. GPSs can be affected for their range accuracy by a few different things. One is the satellite geometry. As I said before, the GPSs connect to 4 different satellites. You also could have signal blockage. Blockage could occur from trees,
It's so
buildings,
crazy.
bridges. Then you have
Right. There's no tire tracks on the lawn. So I think that's part of their trouble, right? I've been thinking about this because the part of their trouble is that his body's found in the yard with the fire hydrant, right? And I've noticed this because they're simultaneously like, the trouble that they have is like, well, he got hit by this car, but the car was in the road, right? And even you hear, like when they get to Yuri Buchanan, for example, right? He says that he got a call or whatever that there was a body in a snowbank on the side of the road. Not accurate. And there was no snowbank. Like, and again, I think part of that was to try to, like, that's like supposed to be like pushing his location of the body out or something, right? Like, or closer to the yard or closer to the road. I don't know. Because it's like, it doesn't make any fucking sense how he got where he was. And it's like, I think that's part of why it's like, so you've got like evidence that's in the yard besides the body, right? You've got like the hat and you've got some other shit that's there like in the yard, but then you've got other shit that's like in the road. Meanwhile, then the whole thing comes out about how they say his body was dragged. It's just, but none of it explains how he's in the yard. And you're right, DSN. Even if it was a vehicle that hit him or whatever, like there would be tire tracks in the yard. So for him to be over there, Right. I mean, great point, Candace. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Of atmospheric conditions, like I
Yeah.
mentioned,
Great
and then you
point
have
as
the
well.
receiver end, any issues with your receiver end, which is actually the handheld GPS. Those would be the four main issues and why you may have a little offset on your GPS readings.
Initially
But
I
again,
paused it
typically,
for this because this is kind of crazy, right? So I'm not saying he's wrong. I don't know anything about GPS. Maybe y'all do, but he's giving all these reasons why GPS doesn't work accurately. So, okay, so we've got a situation here where like measurements were not taken, right? There was no cross measurement checking things that they talk about a lot, no cross measurements taken. At least there's pictures, but there's not nearly as many pictures as there should be. There's not pictures from the initial one. But anyway, it's like, but when you add the fact, if you're going to come in and be like, again, even whether it's true or not, but let's say it is true, right? Or whether it's not, regardless, like the GPS isn't reliable. It doesn't work because of the weather, blah, blah, or it doesn't work anyway, even when the weather's good. And it's even worse when the weather's bad. It's like, well, then isn't that all the more reason why you should be measuring? Because how is it that you're supposed to say that there's an investigation done and that there's anything even remotely plausible that it's accurate when it's like, well, yeah, we didn't measure it. We relied on GPS. And then it's like, well, the GPS isn't accurate. It's like, okay, so what are we even doing here?
under clear sky conditions would be up to 16 feet.
About
Exactly.
somewhere between 5 to 10 feet. Is that just
And that would be like the cross-referencing thing that Jackson brings up a lot with different ways. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. Yeah.
beyond
Sure.
when you started to not find any more items of evidence?
Other ways to do it.
Correct. We had gone past the fire hydrant,
Another good
hadn't
point.
found any other pieces of evidence for,
Yeah.
it's probably closer to
No, GPS is not what you need here, right? Yeah, it is such a small area.
8 to
So-
10 feet, and that's when we suspended the search.
8 to 10 feet.
And so just using that laser pointer, if you could direct the jury's attention to that 8 to 10 feet, in which direction was that from the items of evidence?
Heading south towards Chapman Street, so down in this location would be where we stopped.
Now, sir, at any point in time that you were on scene, were you able to look at or see any sort of photographs or any images of the damage to the taillight?
No, I was not.
So fair to say that at the time that you're conducting your search on that particular afternoon, you weren't aware of how much taillight could be there or how much you might be looking for, correct?
Correct. We did not know how much damage there was.
Now, so you talked a little bit about, well, let me ask you this. As far as from your training and experience in relation to conducting these types of searches,
I'm
are you
Lally.
familiar with a term known as POD?
Correct. So that'd be probability of detection.
And I believe you've referenced earlier in your testimony some variables that go into that terminology. Is that correct?
Correct.
And can you describe to the jury sort of what some of those variables are and how it related to this particular search?
So probability of detection, it winds up turning into a mathematical formula to make it simpler, give us more of a baseline objective on how well we did search in the area. Covers 10 different categories. We'll rate those categories 1 through 10 on how we feel we did and kind of come up with a score to give just a baseline on what we think percentage-wise we would have found the objects we're looking for. Those categories would include the terrain, as number 1, hazards would be 2, lighting would be 3, weather would be 4, vegetation would be 5, which in this case would have been some of the grass we encountered as we got on the front lawn. As you continue on would be your spacing, which is, again, is how the team members are separated as we're searching through the area, the tactics you're using, the area size, then the team composition, and then the last one is instinct and variables. And really the last two, I think, is what works best for us. What stands out most about our team is your team composition and the instincts, just for the experience we have in searching.
And so was it those variables that sort of led to the conclusion in conjunction yourself and Lieutenant Tully as far as to cease searching at that particular point after you were gone 8 to 10 feet south of the evidentiary items without locating any other evidentiary items?
Correct, sir.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness. Thank you, sir.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, sir.
Now,
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Morning, sir.
I'm excited.
Sir, so you will agree with me that it was Lieutenant Brian Tully who first called you at 2:32 p.m. to ask that your team come out for an evidence search?
That's correct, sir.
And you knew at that time that Lieutenant Tully was he was in charge of.
I don't really think so. We're going to hear more about this from him on Cross, but like they were looking for what Lieutenant Tully told them to look for. That's what
The
it comes
Norfolk
down to.
County
He was in charge. Tully
State
was.
Police Detectives Unit, correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
sir.
Attached to the Norfolk County DA's office, correct?
Correct, sir.
Yeah.
And you also knew Trooper Michael Proctor at that time?
I knew who he is, yes, sir.
And you knew that Trooper Michael Proctor was in the same unit as Lieutenant Tully, correct?
I don't know if I knew he was assigned to that office. I'm not sure where he was assigned, sir.
You've since found out that he is.
Correct, sir.
Now, you told Lieutenant Tully during that phone call at 2:32 p.m. that you would make your team available that day, correct?
Yes, sir.
But at that point in time, Lieutenant Tully specifically held you up, right? Because he didn't have authorization yet?
Objection. Is that true?
It's not.
Okay. He told you that he did not have the green light, correct?
He had not requested official response from sir at that time.
So you were not authorized to respond at that time, correct?
No, neither one of us are allowed to dispatch my team. We have to send up formal requests to get authorization to respond.
All right. Now, by 2:32 p.m. on January 29th, when you first spoke to Lieutenant Tully, snow had been falling consistently in Canton since the early hours, correct? The early morning hours?
I would assume so, yes, sir. It was at
you
my
were-
house.
I'm sorry?
It was at my house, so I would assume so, yes, sir.
But you lived in Massachusetts at that time,
Correct,
right?
yes, I did, sir.
And you weren't hours away when you were contacted by Lieutenant Tully, correct?
I was not, no.
All right. Now, you were aware that John O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's lawn at 6:03 that morning?
I believe when I spoke to Lieutenant Tully, he told me around 6:30.
Okay. Well, let's go with 6:30 then. So when you received the call from Lieutenant Tully, snow would have been accumulated from 6:30 a.m. approximately to approximately 2:30 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And so snow had been accumulating at that point when you first got the call for about 8 hours after the body was found, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, before you conduct a search, is it important for you to know in general terms the working theory of the police and the investigators in terms of what had happened at the scene?
It's not. I want as detailed information on what we're looking for. As far as the investigation's concerned, that's not interesting to me. I'm not interested in those exact specifics. I just want to know where you would like us to search and what you need us to find.
Right, but in order to know what you are seeking to find, you'd need to learn from the investigators what they believed happened that would leave that evidence, correct?
Correct, sir. He told us we were looking for pieces of taillight from a vehicle.
All right. You'd also want to know prior to getting to the scene who had access to the scene before you got there, would you not?
I did not need to know that information, no, sir, and I did not ask that.
All right. Is it important to maintain the integrity of a crime scene before it's searched or processed?
Sometimes, but a lot of times when we're involved in searches, we might not be out for days later. If search efforts have been exhausted and they don't think any evidence can be recovered, we will go out to scenes that have been left unsecured for days on end.
Sure. No, I understand that, but that wasn't my question. My question was, is it important to maintain the integrity of a crime scene before it's searched or processed?
No, you can leave it unattended if you don't believe it'll be disturbed or anything will be taken, sir.
Is it preferable to leave a crime scene unattended prior to searching it?
No, I think they would have searched it before we arrived, yes, sir.
Again, I'm going to ask if you would, please just respond to my
What
question.
my preference would be, sir, yes, I'd prefer that it was secured.
Okay, that wasn't very difficult.
Apologize on the
Objection, Your Honor. So, no comments, Mr. Yannetti.
At the time that Lieutenant Tully first called you, were you aware that no one from law enforcement was controlling that crime scene?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I was not aware of that, no, sir.
were you aware at that time that no one had been controlling it for about 6 or 7 hours before you were called?
I was not aware of that, sir.
Were you aware that the scene had been abandoned by the police and investigators at about 7:50 in the morning?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I was not aware of that, sir.
Were you aware that the scene was left open to the public for hours before you were asked to search?
I was not aware of that.
All right, in any case, when you got there, there was only one trooper on scene, and that was a trooper from your unit,
Correct, sir.
Beausoleil?
Correct.
Usually,
Nobody else was guarding the crime scene at that point, correct?
There was not.
dude, Abby, I
in
was just
fact,
thinking
at
about
that-
you. I was just thinking about you and wondering how you were doing because we haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing okay. Have you been keeping up with this? Actually, you said you weren't really watching this trial, right? Am I right about that? But happy to see you, my friend. Woohoo!
Point, did you know where specifically on the property you were going to be searching?
I did not.
And in your experience, is it proper procedure in an investigation that requires a search for law enforcement to give up control of the area that will be searched?
It's not unusual for us to respond to scenes like that, sir.
It happens, but is it proper procedure, sir, to give up control of an area to be searched
Yeah, it
prior
is.
to the search?
If they don't think anything will be recovered in the meantime, sir, it's something we encounter all the time on our searches.
Right? So in this case, is it your testimony then that the investigators didn't think that anything would be recovered?
Objection.
I'll sustain the objection.
All right, well, you recorded that there was a second alert regarding this case at 2:53 p.m., correct?
That was the initial alert, sir.
Well, maybe we're getting into semantics here, but you were first notified at 2:32 p.m. by Lieutenant Tully, correct?
That's him calling me. The 253 alert is sent out to my full team.
Okay. That 2:53 alert is the second time that you're receiving information about this case, right? The first being 2:32 from Lieutenant Tully.
No, that's not new information. That's me taking the information I received from Lieutenant Tully and sending it out to the rest of my team. Because they were not aware of the circumstances yet.
So you were the one to send out that second alert, or that alert?
West Team supervisor, because I was going to start clearing my driveway, so I reached out to a West Team supervisor. He sent out that alert.
And who was that?
That was then Sergeant, now Lieutenant Simpson.
And the alert that Sergeant Simpson sent out was an instruction for members of your team to begin clearing off their cruisers and their driveways to get ready to go, correct?
That was an availability of alert to see who would be available to respond.
And that they should begin clearing off their cruisers and driveways, correct?
Yes, so they would be able to respond.
All right. But your team was still not activated at that point, correct?
Correct.
In fact, Sergeant Simpson explicitly wrote in that alert, quote, "We do not have the green light yet," end quote, correct?
Correct, sir.
Sergeant Simpson at 2:53 p.m. in that alert actually typed it in twice that your team did not have the green light, correct?
Correct. It's a voice generator response. It will normally duplicate the instructions, so as they listen to it, if they miss it the first time through, they can hopefully hear it clearly the second time through.
Okay. And it was very clear that you didn't have the green light from that alert, correct?
Correct, sir. We weren't authorized to respond yet.
Okay. Now, you stated that you were in Massachusetts at the time you were first contacted, correct?
Yes, sir.
And how far were you from Canton?
Normally would be about a 20-minute ride.
All right. With the blizzard conditions, however, it took you longer than that?
43 minutes, sir.
Now, you're familiar with the CERT Administrative Journal extract?
The Daily Journal, sir?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That recorded, and when I say that, I mean, you called it the Daily Journal?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll call it the Daily Journal. That Daily Journal recorded the initial contact that you had with Lieutenant Tully at 2:32 p.m., correct?
Yes, that was entered in the Daily Journal.
And then the second entry was the 2:53 p.m. alert that was sent out by Sergeant Simpson, correct?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's in the Daily Journal or not, but that would be the alert, sir.
You'd agree with me that the 2:32 p.m. phone call with Lieutenant Tully is in the Daily Journal, correct?
Yes, it is.
And the 2:53 p.m. alert by Sergeant Simpson is also in the Journal, correct?
Yes, it is.
Both of those have a timestamp, do they not?
They do, sir.
What is the next entry on that journal?
It says, "Cert activated en route to Canton."
Now, there is no time entry next to that. I'm sorry, no time is entered next to that entry, correct?
There is not, no.
The previous alert said only to clear the vehicles and driveways, essentially, right? To check on availability?
Correct, sir.
So the time that your team is alerted was entered in the journal, but there is no time entered in this journal as to when you were dispatched, correct?
Correct, sir.
But you have a memory of after that 2:53 p.m. alert sent out by Sergeant Simpson that Lieutenant Tully called you back about an hour later?
It's not a memory, sir. Our alert for the team to respond is time-stamped at 3:48 p.m.
Okay, and that was Sergeant Simpson that recorded that, correct?
Correct, sir.
But that's not in the Daily Journal, correct?
No, that's in the Health and Homeland Alert Network, which records all our alerts that get sent out, and that was time-stamped at 3:48.
3:48.
Health
Okay.
and Homeland
Now,
is funny, right? Like, it doesn't sound like what
Other
it...
than authorization that would have been obtained after the 2:53 p.m. alert,
Like, Health and Homeland sounds like a magazine for, like, I don't know, stay-at-home moms or something.
did you ever ascertain what else changed on
Gardening tips.
the part of the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit that allowed you now to have the green light?
Once I was done cleaning my driveway off, which took a significant amount of time, I spoke to my captain. He said we were approved through our chain of command, and that's when either I contacted Lieutenant Tully or he called me. He said he was approved through his chain of command to include the deputy superintendent who was authorizing a response.
Okay,
So there's several layers of the chain of command that have to approve a response for numerous reasons. Staffing reasons, they know I'm going to be pulling, again, I said some of my team members aren't full-time members. Some of them I have to pull off their assignments. So if they're on patrol, I'll now be shorting a barracks. They take that into consideration, overtime consideration, safety consideration of now additional members driving through the whether to respond. So that all gets discussed at levels above us.
all right. That answer applied to strictly issues regarding authorization on both ends, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. You recall my question, which was, other than authorization, did you learn what, if anything, had changed in that time period from 2:53 p.m. to 3:48 p.m. on the part of the Norfolk State Police Detectives Unit?
No, sir. We just talked about the authorization process.
Sometime shortly before 4 o'clock, you're talking about 3:48 being the alert authorizing you to depart. Sometime before 4, Sergeant Simpson informed your team to start heading to Canton and to report to you, correct?
Correct, sir.
That meant that team members should basically stop what they're doing, the ones who are going to be going, get their gear ready, suit up, get in a car, and start driving to Canton to meet up with you, correct?
Correct, sir.
And we've already discussed that on this particular day with blizzard conditions and the roads as they existed, that would obviously take more time than it would on a clear sunny day, correct?
Correct, sir.
And I believe your estimation is maybe about a 20-minute drive in good weather with good roads versus the 43 minutes it actually took you to get there, correct?
Correct.
Now, you would agree with me that when Lieutenant Tully first contacted you at 2:32 p.m., it was still daytime, correct?
Yes, it was.
So it was light out, correct?
Yes, sir.
You'd agree with me that at around 5 o'clock on this late January day in Massachusetts, it was dark out by the time you got there, correct?
Yes, it was.
So when you finally arrived on scene, after getting your team getting the green light, it was dark for the start of your search, correct?
Yes, it was.
When you got there, you set up a command post.
Well, you could call my cruiser command post, sure, sir.
Well, I didn't use the term command post, sir, did I?
You did not.
Who used it first?
We marked my cruiser as a command post on the map, sir.
Okay, all right.
Now there-
And a command
think he's
post
being
is a
rude
base
there.
of operations.
I don't think he's actually being rude there. I think he's actually laughing. Like by he, I mean the lieutenant. I think he's actually thinks it's funny because they called it the command post. So I think it's sort of like it's funny to him. But I could see how it might come across as if he's being rude or something like that. But I don't think so. It might be, or it could even be that there's an inside joke about it, right? That calling him car, that command post. I don't know, but
At the
I
scene,
don't think
correct?
it's. I don't
Yes,
think
sir.
he's being rude or whatever.
And you parked your cruiser basically in front of the driveway at 34 Fairview to serve as the command post?
Yes, right side of the driveway, yes, sir.
And you were initially facing away from the flagpole when you did that?
Yes, sir.
Which would mean that your cruiser was parked technically on the wrong side of the street facing Cedar Crest because you were against 34 Fairview?
Correct, sir.
And then ultimately turned it around?
Well, yes, myself and Trooper Bousselet moved our vehicles.
All right, and
Oh, I have a thought as to that question. Dude, Abby, you've no idea. It's worse. It's worse than you could ever imagine. It's just gone downhill. It's just an absolute fucking disaster in every fucking way. It's really, I mean, I don't know if you ever watched Lawyer, you know, but he's a great example because I mean, like he's like all of LawTube, right? Like came into this without any background information, you know, and but like Lawyer, you know, is like one who's like especially it's funny, he's like especially what's the right way to put it? Really like he's always really balanced and like really he was always really reticent to like admit any wrongdoing or intentional wrongdoing. It's really funny because if you listen to his latest recap, it's like it actually kind of shocked me because I was like, holy shit. He was like, yeah, if you look at this, like I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying things like in regards to certain pieces of information that had come out. He's like, if you look at this, it's like, how can you, he's like, how can you come to any conclusion other than the fact that it had to have been a cover up? Like, it's really, it's like coming from his mouth. I was like, what? You know? I mean, it's just, you know, it's some things seemed really far-fetched, but like really it's, and the prosecution's case in chief is really, I mean, it's wild. It's wild. It really is.
you initially parked there in part because you wanted to keep the area where
Right.
you were searching clear.
Yeah, motion for a directed verdict. It has to. If that doesn't get granted, there should be riots in all seriousness because this is such a miscarriage of justice. This is really insane. I mean, there's a running joke that every time that one of these, not this guy, actually, this dude seems to be fine, but like he's like literally the exception in terms of law enforcement doing something shady. And like he actually, it seems like he wasn't involved at all, but like everybody else, literally, there's like a joke that because there's always sirens going on. There's like a joke that like the sirens, it's like, are they coming to arrest one of the people that are on the witness stand?
of vehicles, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was where you met at the, we'll call it a command.
Right. And I don't even remember which moment you're talking about, Kitsmas, because there's been so many. There's just so much in Buchanan's testimony. And we're not going to get to that tonight, but we should hopefully get to that tomorrow. We're going to do part 2 tomorrow. And also I did cover a lot of his testimony on like live when it was happening. Oh, the interview. I know, right? Yeah. The interview. That is really, and we did talk about that a little bit in the Discord. She says, she says about like how she says he beat up, what does he say? Brian Albert Sr. and Colin and Albert beat him up or something like that. And then she's like, you know, since we're all in on the same joke here, you know, my taillight is cracked and John O'Keefe is pulverized or whatever. So I'm paraphrasing. Right. Yeah. There you go. Yep. You're where you got beat up by Brian calling out, right? I mean, we're all on the same joke. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it's so crazy that that's all they have too. I mean, I had a really good thought about that earlier today too, and now I can't remember what it is, but I'm sure when I put that part of the clip together for the recap, I'll remember it.
Post because you did your cruiser. That was where you met to discuss the parameters of the search.
When Detective Lieutenant Tully arrived on scene, that's where we spoke.
Okay. And you would agree with me that it was Lieutenant Tully from the Norfolk State Police Detectives Unit who told you where to look and what to look for, correct?
Correct. He told us the area he thought would be the best probability to find what we were looking for.
You have to understand too, the prosecution, I'm sure, only wanted in the part about that last sentence, right? My guess is that, my thought is like that. So if I had to try to picture how this went pre-trial, don't tell me if I'm right. Like, I don't want to know. I'm just guessing, right? Because we can look into all that afterwards. But my thought would be that like the Commonwealth wanted to admit this. The defense, I'm sure, objected to completeness initially, at least initially, right? Maybe entirely, because it's a hearsay issue, right? Well, actually, it's not a hearsay issue because it is the defendant. However, it does still have a completeness issue. So, but my thought is this. My thought is that either there was some sort of agreement that it could come in, but they had to play the whole thing. And when I say the whole thing, I mean the part that they have. Who knows what happened to the rest of it, right? But by the whole thing, what I mean is the first parts, the first two sentences about Brian and Colin Albert and then the joke part. My guess is the Commonwealth only wanted to admit that last part. The last sentence, my taillight's cracked and John's just pulverized. But that, again, either, you know, there was some sort of thing where like the defense maybe stipulated, like, because I think this would have been completely objectionable because of the completeness issue. And that it's possible the defense, part of me wonders if the defense actually maybe thought better of it. Like potentially I could see them initially objecting, and then I could see them as it gets along closer to trial, I could see them changing their mind because they probably could see that if, as long as those first two sentences came in, it was actually better for them. And that the Commonwealth was like an idiot for even playing it. So I don't know. That's part of what I was thinking.
Looking for.
In addition to your team, the seven of you, you noted that there were 5 other officers on scene at various points, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was about 5, sir.
They were all in uniform?
They were not.
Some were in plain clothes?
They were.
And you didn't know who those 5 other officers were, correct?
I only recognized 2 of them, sir.
And so the other 3, you didn't know if they were state police or Canton police?
Correct, sir.
Lieutenant Tully directed you to an area where he said that John O'Keefe's body was found, correct?
He directed us to where he believed the vehicle involved had been parked and to where the victim's body was recovered.
All right. So again, in answer to my question, he did direct you to an area where he believed the victim's body was found, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he told you that he believed that the victim officer was hit and dragged by a motor vehicle, correct?
Yeah, I believe he might have said possibly dragged.
All right. But in terms of your paperwork on the case, there's something called a final mission report, correct?
Yes, there is, sir.
And what is the final mission report?
That's just a brief summary of the actions conducted by CERT during our assignment.
And with regard to, just going back for a second, with regard to those 5 officers, you mentioned that you...
I love the whole final mission report. It just makes it sound something like a John or a James Bond movie or something like that. Right. Yes, I agree, Kitsmith. Yeah. Yeah, I think that they ended up. I think they probably could have still fought that coming in for like a lot of reasons. There's so many problems with that interview that it's insane. And so you can imagine that. And they didn't even object. I don't think they objected, right? Even like in other words, like my thought was they could have stopped that ahead of time, like way ahead of time, right? But I don't think they even objected during the trial. I think that they were like, yeah, let Lally, dig his own grave even deeper or whatever they say. Yeah, right. I know. Like if you're gonna say, and now I'm wondering what you're gonna say is like, but there's like all this other shit that had issues and that came into, and that's true. But even if that's the case, they still could have objected, and I don't think they did. And the other thing is, I've been thinking about, God, what was it I was listening to? With Trooper Buchanan, there's going to be so much to talk about there with the strategy. I've really been thinking about the strategy of the defense when they object. It's very strategic, and it's actually not like what we're used to a lot of the times, where it's the objections, I think, for them are not always based on like if something's objectionable. It's completely other reasons. That's what I've kind of figured out. It's a bigger strategy than that, and it has to do with like gamesmanship in a way with Lally, I think, because there's plenty of stuff that's so objectionable and they're not objecting. Like just compound alone. I mean, leading. I think there's just so much. Right. Exactly. Yeah. There have been so many issues with the prosecution's case that the defense felt like, hey, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and that's the other thing I keep coming back to is like, dude, it doesn't even matter. Like every time they're like, I see, them fighting so hard on cross for certain things, and really I'm like, gosh, I was thinking about this earlier today too. I was like, they don't need to do anything. It's over, man. It was over at the solo cups, right? Like you can't get it past that. But I think that they can't help themselves from doing their job well. You know what I mean? It's like they're still fighting as if they have to fight because they're used to that. Defense attorneys are usually having to fight, tooth and nail the whole time. It's like, dude, they could just be fucking resting on their laurels, so to speak, whatever. Like the prosecution fucked themselves, but I actually appreciate that they're still doing all of the things because it's a beautiful thing to watch, really.
Recognized 2 of the 5 officers that were in plainclothes at the scene?
Correct, sir.
And what departments were they from?
The only 2 I recognized were from the state police.
Okay. Now, getting back to the final mission report, you called it a brief summary of what you had done with regard to the search, correct?
Yes, sir.
Just because it's brief doesn't mean that it should be inaccurate, correct?
Correct, sir.
It's important with regard to anything that you submit on this case that you be as accurate as possible, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you try to be, correct?
Do our best, sir.
Right. And there is an entry, there are 6 different categories or I should say 7 different categories on the final mission report. The first being the mission name, which you entered as the Canton evidence search, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate. The evidence search occurred, and it occurred in Canton, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also put the date and time of the first call, and you entered that as January 29th of 2022 at 2:32 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate because you've testified that's when Lieutenant Tully contacted you, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's a entry or a question or a box that says general terrain, and you entered that as neighborhood, snow-covered street, and front lawn, correct?
Correct, sir.
And that was accurate, right?
Yes, sir.
And in terms of incident type, you entered evidence search, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was accurate, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then there's a final mission report that talks about your mission and starts with, 7 CERT members, and that's the CERT team, right?
Yes, sir.
7 CERT members responded to the scene, and it talks about, the snow in the area where the victim's body was found, the plows hadn't cleared the street, et cetera, et cetera. That paragraph is accurate as well, correct?
Yes, it is, sir.
And then there's a final mission report by, and it gives your name, Lieutenant Kevin O'Hara, and it has your accurate badge number, which is 3042, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, everything that we've just discussed in terms of what you put in your final mission report was entered accurately, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the final category is general description of mission. And would you agree with me that you entered the off-duty officer was hit and dragged by a vehicle
There it is.
at approximately 12:30 a.m.?
I don't remember exactly how it's worded, sir. If I could.
May I approach, Your Honor?
There it is. So
All set, sir. Thank you.
That's the first time you've heard that one.
Lieutenant, having read that portion of the final mission report, is your memory refreshed?
Yes, it is, sir.
All right. And did you enter in there, the off-duty officer was hit and dragged by a vehicle at approximately 12:30 a.m.?
Yes, it is. I did, sir.
All right. Now, with regard to the area that, or I should say, Lieutenant Tully's direction to you to search the area where the victim's body was found, Lieutenant Tully never informed you that he was actually present and saw the victim's body in that spot, did he?
He did not, no, sir.
Did you mark the place where John O'Keefe's body was found with GPS coordinates?
We did not. He wasn't no longer on scene, sir, so I think that would have been not 100% accurate.
Like,
Okay. You also
thing I will
mentioned
say
that
that is so
Lieutenant
nuts
Tully.
is you can see the evolution of the story, right? Because we have Trooper Buchanan, who initially tells, not the hospital, they argue over that a lot. I forget who it is, the medical examiner's office. He tells them that John O'Keefe was hit with a glass in a bar fight or something along those lines, right? Now, this dude is saying, and again, these are things that they would have been told, it seems like, right? Now he's being told that the officer victim was hit by a car and dragged. Now, I wonder if part of that is A, to try to explain the scratches on the arm, or B, how he got to where he was. However, it's still not good enough, right? Because that still doesn't bring him into the lawn. There's no tire marks on the ground, as DSN said. So that's why the arm is going to be really important too, right? Because it's like, well, what is that from? Is it from the dog? Is it from being dragged? I mean, I will say definitively it's not, but that's what the prosecution may be suggesting. Is it from something else? So, but you can see the evolution of it because as they go along, and I'm not saying this dude was a part of it, like in terms of that story, right? I don't think he was. But I think that probably all the other law enforcement officers, all of them so far, it seems like were, and that the story's evolving. It's like two things are happening at once, which is what's so crazy. It's like, not only is the story evolving over time, but new evidence is appearing or quote unquote revealing itself over time, and the story's evolving, both things. So it's insane.
Directed you to the area where the SUV had been parked, correct?
To where the vehicle was believed to have been parked, yes, sir.
At that time, did you know it was an SUV or not?
I did not, sir.
All right. But in any case, Lieutenant Tully didn't tell you that he ever saw the vehicle parked in the area to which he directed you, correct?
He did not say that he saw it there, no,
I
sir.
think we need to call Tully,
So
right?
Lieutenant Tully told you
Don't we need to call Tully?
look for a man's
Why aren't they
sneaker,
calling
correct?
Tully? Well, I mean,
That was one of the items missing, yes, sir.
And he told you to look for red and
from what
clear
I
plastic.
can tell, Tully is probably even more of a figure in this than Buchanan. I think that it's like, in terms of the role of how the law enforcement officers, it's like Trooper Proctor was like the head, but then I think Tully is second in command, in my opinion, in terms of the involvement. And then maybe underneath him is Buchanan, but Tully seems to have had way more influence in this than Buchanan did.
Plastic pieces of taillight, correct?
He just said taillight, didn't say red clear, but taillight pieces.
Okay. Did Lieutenant Tully give you approval not just to search outside the house, but also inside the house?
No, we never discussed searching inside the house, sir.
And you had mentioned during your testimony that you confirmed that the homeowner was there, right? Because he came out of the house at one point?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the homeowner, but an adult male exited the house while we were there, sir.
Sure. And he appeared to live at that home, correct? Let me just a moment. All right. Now, with regard to the area that you were searching, you would agree with me that Lieutenant Tully was the one who directed you where to search and what to search for, correct?
He gave us the best idea for the search area, yes, sir.
All right. And it was based on his direction that you created a grid and began your search?
He told us where he believed the vehicle was parked and where the victim's body was found, and I decided how far of a distance we would search.
Okay. So that's another way of saying it was based on his direction that you created a grid and began your search, correct?
Yeah, I based it off of the information he provided, yes, sir.
So the answer is yes?
I guess so, sir.
This was not the first time that you and your team have done a search in the snow, correct?
Not for evidence. We had never done a search like this before, just for missing person searches.
I see. But in any case, you've been trained to search winter crime scenes that have snow, correct?
Correct, sir.
There are proper techniques for conducting such searches during or after a snowfall, correct?
Yeah, we have best practices we use.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes, we have best practices we use, sir.
Of course. Best practices would include documenting the scene and the area to be searched with photographs and diagrams, correct?
Yes, sir.
It would also include using, gentle methods to remove snow, correct?
Yeah, the best way you can, yes, sir.
That might include, smaller hand tools, brushes, gloved hands.
Only if you would have a real small area.
It would include removing snow layer by layer and then sifting it and documenting evidence again for each layer that's removed.
Yeah, I believe that's how we went through, sir. We went slowly, methodically, and sifting through the snow as we progressed down the area. Correct.
And best practices would mean documenting by photographs along the way the progress of your search, would it not?
That would be up to the detectives or the crime scene unit, sir.
Well, but you were the one who was making those decisions, correct?
Not for documentation purposes. No, that's not our responsibility, sir.
Okay. But you would agree with me that it would be advisable to document your search in that way, would it not?
That would be at the discretion of the detective, sir.
You testified at a prior proceeding in this matter, did you not?
I did, sir.
And you were sworn to tell the truth during that prior proceeding as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that testimony was closer in time to the search that you conducted on January 29th than today is, correct?
Yes, it was, sir.
And your memory would have been better then than it is today, correct?
Probably, sir.
You were asked the question, quote, and as far as the red and clear glass you believed consistent with the taillight, was that found in the same area as the sneaker or somewhere else? Do you recall that question?
I believe being asked that question, yes, sir.
And your answer was same area within a few inches, less than a foot, correct?
Correct, sir.
Now, you mapped out GPS coordinates for what you found?
One of the team members did, yes, sir.
Your team did?
Yes, sir.
And Lieutenant Tully from the Norfolk State Police Detective Unit was present during the search, correct?
Yes, he was.
And he was the one that was photographing the items that were found?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, again, why are they got to call?
So I'd like to ask you a few questions about your observations about where these items were found in relation to each other.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Was there a piece of red plastic located on the roadway left of the flagpole when you look at the house from the street?
This is like what I was saying. The fact that like you can think about like again, these things are kind of morphing simultaneously, right? Where the victim's located and how he got there, what happened to him, and then you've got these pieces that are scattered about, yeah, like what Candace said earlier, right? It's like it's as if a bunch of drunk people just came up with a story and then scattered shit everywhere, whether they did it or whoever did it, right? But like in other words, it doesn't make any sense looking
Left
at
of
it.
the flagpole.
Where
Yes, sir.
they're
All
located.
right. Now,
Like
given your
my
testimony,
point is, like, even if you just think about where the items are located, the shoe and the hat and the body and the tail and all that, even that doesn't tell a consistent story. That's what's weird about it, right?
about these items essentially
was
being
made
in
up
the
or not,
same
there's no
area,
issue
less
about
than a
that.
foot away from each other, it could not be true then that from that red piece of plastic that was found in the street, that 3 feet south of that was a black Nike sneaker found under the snow. That couldn't have happened, correct?
Well, I don't know where the distance between the objects as far as the mapping purposes, sir, but as far as how far apart, the first thing we discovered was one red piece of plastic, and then further south, that's when we found the sneaker and additional pieces.
Right, but again, they were all in the same area, less than a foot apart, correct?
Same general area, but it could have been over a foot, sir. I'd have to measure between the GPS markings.
Okay, well, so is your testimony today that what you testified to in that prior proceeding, where everything was less than a foot apart, that wasn't accurate?
Objection.
Allow it. Is that your testimony, sir?
I hate it when she does
Best
that.
recollection that they were within around a foot, but to be 100% accurate, you would have to measure between the 2 GPS points, which I have not done.
Couldn't
Sure,
we do that though?
but
Why not? Why can't we do
If
that?
your estimate is they were, you didn't even say a foot, you said less than a foot, correct?
I believe that's what you read, around a foot. Yes, sir.
Which is what you testified to, correct?
Correct, sir.
So if it's less than a foot, then by definition, the sneaker couldn't have been found 3 feet south of where that red piece of plastic was, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
You don't know what's accurate.
Where you're saying 3 feet, I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
No, that's what I'm asking you. Is it accurate?
I don't know, sir. I'm not sure the exact distance. I didn't measure the GPS marking, sir. I'm not.
All right.
I don't know. I didn't know where you came up with that number 3 feet, sir.
I'm just asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
That'll
that's
be,
fair.
well, I'm just asking questions. All right, so
There, he was gonna say there will be time for Lally to redirect you or something along those lines. He was about to refer to the fact that because we always hear this, right? Well, they'll say like, "I'm just asking questions. You'll have a chance on redirect, explain shit like that," right? Let me back that up one more time so you can hear because I think it's really interesting because he aborts the mission on that. Hold on.
So if it's less than a foot, then by definition, the sneaker couldn't have been found 3 feet south of where that red piece of plastic was, correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
You don't know what's accurate.
Where you're saying 3 feet, I don't know if that's accurate, sir.
No, that's what I'm asking you. Is it accurate?
I don't know, sir. I'm not sure the exact distance. I didn't measure the GPS marking, sir. I'm not.
All right.
I don't know. I didn't know where you came up with that number 3 feet, sir.
I'm just asking questions.
Okay.
That'll be, well, I'm just asking questions. All right.
He was gonna say that'll be something that you can, Lally will redirect or something like that. And I think he was like, wait, I don't want to give Lally any ideas, and so he was like, stop. He's like, stopped himself and
So
thought it was funny.
with regard to, let's assume for a moment that the sneaker was found 3 feet south of that first red piece of plastic. From your observations, was there a clear piece of plastic that was found a few feet south of that black sneaker?
There was a piece of clear plastic found just past the sneaker.
A few feet south of the sneaker?
I don't know where you're getting that from, sir.
Again, you don't have to worry where my questions are coming
So,
from.
Mr. Yannetti, no comments. Next
Sure.
question.
I'm just asking a factual question. You were there, I was not.
Mr. Yannetti, just ask the
Yes.
question.
Was a clear piece of plastic found a few feet south of the black sneaker, which was found 3 feet south of the red piece of plastic? Did that happen?
I don't know the distance, sir. No, not without measuring it. But I wouldn't think it was that far of a distance. They were much closer than that.
Right. I mean, you say you don't know the distance, but you testified to what the distance was in that prior proceeding, did you not?
Objection.
Next question, please.
All right.
Here's what I think. Here's my 2 cents on this. I don't think he's trying to make this guy look bad or impeach this guy or whatever. I think his point is that this guy actually is, I think his point that he's trying to make in front of the jury is like, this dude is actually a credible, more reliable witness than any of the other law enforcement officers they've heard thus far, and potentially will hear for the entire trial. And that this dude was actually there. This dude didn't have what was the jokes that we had? He didn't have a horse in the window. We had all these different sayings we came up for that. He didn't have a butt in the dial. He didn't have any reason to be biased for anything, right? He didn't know any of these people. So anyway, I think that with him, he is hoping to use this guy's recollection of actually being there, right? Because that's something that you can actually rely on, because they could fuck, Trooper Proctor, etc., could fuck with the evidence once it was taken away. They could fuck with the reports. They could fuck with whatever. But they couldn't fuck with this dude's memory, because this dude doesn't give a shit and he doesn't know them. So like, he was there, he was collecting the evidence. So his memory of the evidence on that day, I think potentially is the best, most reliable, potentially, record of where things were. And I think it's important. And actually, that's why he's been hammering it, right? Not hammering it, but like, he'd already been talking about, like, on cross and on direct, about how all the items were like right up on top of each other, right? And I think that it's not like Yannetti is hoping to impeach this guy by being like, didn't this thing say it was 3 feet apart? I think it's the other way around. That's my personal opinion, that he's hoping to show that maybe the records were altered after the fact. Because that just makes the most sense. And again, it's a smart strategy of like using this guy's reliability, like, to discredit all the other law enforcement, right? Potentially. So hopefully that makes sense.
And then,
That was Lally.
moving along, we have the red piece of plastic, 3 feet south, black sneaker, a few feet south, clear plastic. Then finally, several feet south of that clear piece of plastic, was there a second piece of red plastic found? Several feet south.
No, again, I don't agree with your description of the distance, sir.
Okay. All right. So we will agree that, one piece of red plastic, 3 feet south sneaker, a few feet south clear piece of plastic, and then several feet south more red plastic. That didn't happen, correct?
See?
I don't agree on those distances, no, sir.
Yeah, he's this poor guy thinks that he's trying to make it seem like this guy, like he did something wrong. That's not it. He knows you don't agree. That's the point. He knows you don't agree. That's exactly what he's trying to say, is like, again, after the fact, more shit was found, shit was spread out to try to tell a different story as to how he got there. I think that's the point of this.
No. Okay. Would you agree with me that it's important to be precise in your investigation and your search?
Yes, why Lieutenant Tully took an evidence log, sir.
All right. So as you testify here today, 2.5 years later, can you tell the jury whether it was 6 or 7 of the pieces of plastic that you actually found?
I've never seen the evidence log from that night, sir, so I'm not sure exactly how many he recovered. Again, I was partaking in the search, so I'm not sure what the exact number is, sir.
And you would agree with me that you only mapped 3 of them on the map that was introduced here at trial, correct?
Correct.
And again, that was because the pieces were essentially on top of each other, correct?
Correct. As you would mark them on the GPS, they were marking almost directly on top of each other, and we knew that was going to...
Close together.
And they certainly were not being marked feet away from each other, several feet, correct?
That's it. That's the
No,
point.
sir.
That's the point.
And
That's
you
the point.
are aware that
Hold on.
Lieutenant Tully
Hold on, Yannetti.
photographed 5 pieces of plastic that day, are you not?
I'm not sure. I'd never seen the photos until probably about a week ago, sir.
All right, in any case, you did say to the State Police Detective Unit at the end of this search that if they wanted you and your team to come back out during daylight hours, you would, correct?
Correct, sir.
So I'd like to direct your attention to 6 specific dates. and then I'll ask you a question. February 3rd, February 4th, February 8th, February 10th, February 11th, and February 18th. Those 6 dates. And my question is, did the lead investigator, Trooper Michael Proctor, ever call you on one of those 6 dates to come back to the scene to conduct a further search?
No, he did not.
I have nothing further.
All right, yeah.
Morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
All right, well, on to the next
Could
one.
you
Next
please state your
one.
name and spell your last name for the jury?
Maureen Hartnett, Hartnett.
All right, Ms.
He's witness number 52.
Hartnett, I know I'm going to ask you throughout this to keep your voice up, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And Ms. Hartnett, what do you do for work?
I'm a forensic scientist too with the Criminalistics Unit and Crime Scene Response Unit at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Laboratory.
And how long in total have you been with the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
In total, approximately 8 years.
The outside
Yeah.
sort of vendor or
He's
the
here
outside
probation.
accrediting agency,
He's here
who is that
probation, lady.
in regard to the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab?
Our laboratory is accredited by ANAB, which stands for ANSI National Accreditation Board, and
You guys remember ANAB from anything? There's a reason I left that in on purpose, and it's not because it's really all that important, but it's for another reason. Does anybody remember ANAB? I don't want to give it away. I'll see if y'all remember.
ANSI is another acronym that stands for National Standards American National Standards Institute.
Explain to the jury what remediation is and why this specific proficiency test required remediation.
A remediation occurs when you have an inconsistent answer with that is expected by the laboratory or by the
Anybody remember-
test provider.
Yes, that's
In
correct.
this particular instance,
Anybody
I had an
remember
inconsistent answer with the expected laboratory result.
And how was the remediation completed in this instance?
After the inconsistent answer was identified by my technical leader, we had a verbal discussion about why I came to the conclusion I did. To be more specific, each item had 2 samples. One of the samples for item 4, I determined as being a human hair without a root, when in fact the root was present. We had a discussion on how I came to that conclusion, and then she then mounted that hair back on the microscope, and we discussed different ways that I could have come to the correct conclusion.
And during that remediation process, were you permitted to continue to perform casework during that time?
Yes, I was. I was permitted to continue to perform casework in hair and fiber identification. However, I was temporarily asked to not perform technical reviews of my peers' work on hair and fiber identification.
Hair probation.
And was prior casework that you had completed evaluated to verify that the previous reports were issued correctly?
Yes, they were.
And what was the determination in regard to that?
No previous casework was affected by this error.
Just explain to the jury sort of what the issue was and what that remediation process looked like again.
Sure. So I received 4 items in hair and fiber identification. Each item was told that they came from the same source. Item number 4 consisted of 2 items. One was a hair with a root. The other was also a human hair with a root, but I had said the root was absent. That was due to the fact that I didn't see anything like that under the microscope. It was something that was new to me. My technical leader reviewed that hair with me under the microscope. She showed me various characteristics such as a loss of scale pattern and the...
Yeah. Isn't that funny? It probably was Runkle. I don't remember Lawyer saying it. I haven't got fully caught up on Runkle. But I don't think but Lawyer since his recaps are shorter, I don't remember him saying that. But yeah, that sounds like something that Runkle would say. And yeah, it is. It's like a sad attempt, right? Right. I know. It's so silly. It is absolutely so silly. Yeah, the way he does it, he makes it a bigger deal, definitely. But did anybody recognize ANAB? Do you guys not remember ANAB from something?
soft appearance of the root, which I thought was damage. Because we had this discussion and I agreed with the different characteristics that she showed me, she then gave me several hairs, both with damage and with roots, so that I could basically continue to understand the difference of what I was looking at. Once she looked at all my notes and agreed with everything that I had done, she then issued me an additional test to demonstrate my continued competency in
Like
this.
too much about this, you know what I mean?
Now, Ms. Hartnett, if I could turn your attention to February 2nd, 2022. Do you recall that date?
Yes, I do.
And on that date, were you dispatched to the Canton Police Department?
Yes, I was.
And do you recall approximately what time of day it was that you arrived at the Canton Police Department?
I believe it was approximately 9 a.m.
And when you arrived there, who, if anyone, beyond yourself, from the state police or other sort of personnel was present at the Canton Police?
Trooper Proctor, Trooper Dunn, and Trooper Clark from Crime Scene Services Unit.
And at some point subsequent to that, were there other members of the state police that arrived in that area as well?
Yes.
And was one of them a reconstructionist named Trooper Paul?
I'm not sure what the name was. I do know that the reconstruction team did come on after I arrived.
Now, where within the Canton Police Department were you directed to go, or where did you go?
I was directed to the Canton Police Department garage.
We'll hear from Trooper Paul.
And when you got to the garage, what specifically
The Lally
were
port.
there, and what, if anything, were you asked to do?
I was asked to examine a black Lexus SUV.
And did you then examine that black Lexus SUV?
Yes, I did.
She's like,
And,
like,
you made
well,
certain-
it's like, no, I just decided not to. Like, what the fuck? So if no one remembers ANAB, I left that part in about ANAB when they're just talking about the accreditation because that came up in Murdoch. I don't know if y'all remember the defense expert. There was one that I actually really liked. I thought he did a great job. He was like, I think he wasn't their last expert. He was their second last. I don't remember his name, but he was the older gentleman who had like crazy amount of experience, and he was very professional. And even when Poot tried to get him to say some like outlandish shit, like he wouldn't go there. And Poot tried to get him to like talk shit about like SLED, and like he wouldn't go there either. And he was like just so fucking legit. It was insane. But he talked about ANAB and all that a bunch. And I just remember like I was like, shout out to ANAB. And then, so when she said it, I remember when we were watching this live and I heard her say it, I was like so excited because I was like, how can we help you with a boost? What will help you? A song or a funny video, or I don't know. Let us know.
And observations of that, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now, with respect to your observations that you made of the black Lexus SUV, was that memorialized in any way?
Yes, I took notes as I was examining it.
And you mentioned Trooper Clark as well, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
And is he from the Crime Scene Services section within the State Police Lab?
Yes.
And what, if anything, was he doing with reference to the black Lexus while you were making your observations or while you were conducting your work?
I believe he was taking photographs. I don't know any other, I don't know what else he performed while he was there.
And Ms. Hartnett, before you, I believe, on that desk in front of you, there should be a laser pointer.
Yes.
Just click on the button there and point it at the screen if I or anyone asks you to do so with reference to the screen. So, Ms. Hartnett, with reference to what's up on the screen, the top of that first page of the diagrams, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what you observed and what, if anything, you made note of in reference to your observations of the black Lexus on February 2nd.
Okay. Huh. In my notes,
It's Pooty time. Hold on for the Poot. He loves you, Abby. Poot gave me a little message to tell you. Poot wanted me to tell you something. He said to tell you that you are amazing and you're doing great and keep up the good work.
had the vehicle was in overall good condition, and there was damage noted on the rear passenger side area. So that's not viewable in this particular diagram.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could scroll down to the bottom.
So in this area here.
And as far as the damage that you noted in the right rear passenger area, what was it specifically that you noted?
I noted there was a dent.
Yeah, don't read from there. What did you note?
There was a dent in the trunk door. There was
She encouraged the ER doc to read from his notes. beyond me, beyond me.
Scratches on the rear bumper, and there was a broken taillight.
Yeah. So the dent and the scratches. So for anyone who missed it, y'all, I did a little video at the beginning of the stream, and I'm going to probably post it separately as well, just as like a standalone video. It's not long, but it's me doing a little experiment, and the dent and the scratches, I just think is just, in this case, with the way that everything is panning out here, I think it's really bullshit that they're even mentioning it. I think it's them trying to make it seem like they have actual evidence that they don't have. But I do address that as well as the hair and the taillight. So, yeah.
From the diagrams that are up on the screen right now, page 2 of what's been marked as 137, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct your attention to each of those observations you made and where they were in relation to the document.
The damage to the dent, the rear door was in this area. The broken tail light was here, and then there were some scratches on the rear bumper as well.
Now, in addition to scratches on the rear,
and the other thing too is when I show y'all in my car that happened without my knowledge, somebody did that in a parking lot, I guess. Like, and just that's it. The damage is actually really identical to what's on Karen's car. It's pretty crazy.
Bumper on the area of that lift gate in the back. What, if anything, else did you observe sort of within that area?
I observed an apparent hair on the rear quarter panel about here. And I also noted some pieces of glass on the rear bumper. Excuse me, I want to say apparent pieces of glass.
Now, as far as that word, when you say apparent human hair on the rear bumper, why that terminology? Why do you call it that at that stage when you're in the garage and you're making these observations?
At that time, I noted that it was an apparent hair because I had not done any microscopic observation of the hair.
And subsequent to that, did you do that microscopic examination of the hair that you observed in the rear area of that Lexus SUV?
Yes, I did.
And where was that performed?
That was performed back at the lab.
So that item was...
I will say in regards, God fucking damn it, to the hair, my thought initially before they mentioned, before she says that the hair is a human hair, actually, well, okay, I'm just going to throw this out here. I think it's not to the end of I think it's still possible, actually. I can't rule it out yet entirely, actually. Okay, so my gut instinct when I saw the hair, I will say, my gut instinct is that it was a dog hair. My gut instinct was a dog, because it looks to me like a dog hair. And then when we heard her at the very beginning of this direct talk about how she made this mistake and this and that, didn't affect anything, I'm like, oh boy. So in other cases where they say where this happens, or they say it didn't affect anything, maybe that's more plausible. In this case, it's just not. It's just not. It's just like with everything else, right? That it's like there's an excuse for fucking everything. And so whether it's just being inept or being ignorant or being lazy or being corrupt, whatever the case is, and so so then there was that. And later on, she does say something about it being a human hair, but there's a question on cross that I'm going to point out that yet again popped it into my brain. And I don't know that anyone else pointed it out, but I thought it was interesting. And it kind of came back to the dog lady, but we'll talk about that when we get there. But basically, my gut instinct initially was that it has to be dog hair. Like, that was just my gut instinct. But then I'm like, put that aside, but it really does not, first of all, it does not look like a human hair. And second of all, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess the odds of it being a dog hair or human hair are like maybe about equal in terms of like, I think it must have been a hair that was just like on somebody's sleeve or something, right? Clearly, I mean, like, in other words, it's not because his head bashed it. Like, that's the point. Because I don't think any of that's, you know what I mean? It's just like if what the prosecution is trying to insinuate is that his head was bashed into the taillight, as we've talked about, that's impossible for so many reasons. But there would be a lot more here, obviously, right? And then there's the fact that the hair stayed on that whole drive. There's just a lot. There's a lot of problems. So yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to I don't think we can rule out anything or ruling. I think the hair is still a big unknown at this point as to where it came from and what the fuck it is.
Secured by yourself, taken back to the lab and examined microscopically.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, with reference to what you termed as the apparent glass on the rear bumper, similar to the apparent hair, why is it that you use that terminology when you're making those observations of it in the garage?
I did not have any confirmation that it was glass. We refer to it as apparent glass and preserve it for the trace unit.
And what, if anything, of significance did you note in this area of that?
I noted the items that were located within the vehicle. There were some boxes on the back seat of the vehicle. There was also a package in the vehicle and some clothing and miscellaneous items in the trunk.
Now, as far as the items that were contained within the trunk, how high up were they? Let me ask you this. As far as the rear window of the trunk area, was there anything obstructing that?
I don't recall at this time.
This is inside of the garage of the Canton Police Station, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In addition to the vehicle, is this a fair and accurate portrayal of what the inside of the garage looked like when you were there that day on February 2nd?
Yes.
So looking now what's been marked Exhibit 147, Mr. Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in a little. Now, with reference to the damage that you were talking about that may have been blocked by the caution tape in the prior exhibit, do you see that in this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, before you draw the jury's attention to where in this exhibit you observed that damage.
Right here. It's on the rear door, right underneath the window.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, as far as crime scene response is concerned, when you're doing this kind of examination of a motor vehicle, can you explain to the jury sort of what that process entails and what is it that you're doing over the course of your examination?
I complete an overall visual examination of the vehicle, noting any damage or anything that stands out that should be recorded. I then look for any stains or material that is on the vehicle, specifically any transfer that could have been left behind by a victim.
And as far as making those observations, what, if anything, do you then do with regard to those observations that you made from the visual inspection?
I'll then perform testing on any stains that I did, note or any areas of interest, and then collect anything that needs to be collected.
Now, with respect to this vehicle and this examination, what is exactly that you were requested to examine?
I was informed that this vehicle may have been involved in a hit and run, so I was requested to examine it for biological material.
And what, if any, information were you given upon arrival to the Canton Police Department in regard to that vehicle?
I was informed that the victim had scratches on his arm, as well as the fact that the car had been towed through a blizzard.
And did you perform any testing with relation to the vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And what was that testing that you performed?
I performed blood screening on the lower lying areas of the undercarriage, on each side of the tire flap, as well as the edge of the bumper and the exhaust pipe.
And what were the results of that testing that you performed there in the garage?
Those were negative.
And what, if any, evidence did you collect while you were either from the vehicle or from any other source while you were at the Canton Police Station that day?
I collected the apparent glass from the rear bumper. I collected a paint standard from the area of damage on the rear door. I also collected a paint standard from the area of damage on the rear bumper, as well as the apparent hair from the rear quarter panel. And I collected the taillight housing from the vehicle.
And what, if anything, of significance in relation to items collected or items that you observed, do you observe in this particular photo?
I observed the apparent glass on the rear bumper.
And again, up on the screen, what's now been marked as Exhibit 153, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
Now, as far as that area that you were talking about where you recovered, which you termed initially in the garage as an apparent human hair, do you see the location of that within this photograph?
Is it possible to zoom in a little bit on the area right next to the rear tail light?
Go in if you could.
To the best of my recollection, it was in this area.
Now, as far as areas where you observe certain items or where damage is indicated or observed by you, is that later marked in some fashion?
I make area, I note the damage in my notes.
But as far as on the physical item itself, is that marked in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, I'll use stickers to indicate areas that I would then refer to back in my notes.
So that second set of photographs that I placed before you when the stenographer was marking those exhibits, do you generally recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes.
What do you recognize those?
These are pictures of the interior of the black Lexus SUV.
Ms. Hartnett, again, direct your attention to the screen. Do you recognize what's now been marked as Exhibit 156?
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the driver compartment of the black Lexus SUV.
And what is depicted in that photograph, ma'am?
It's the front seat area of the black Lexus SUV.
And specifically, as far as the center console area of that vehicle, is that a fair and accurate portrayal of what you observed inside the vehicle on February 2nd?
Yes.
And Ms. Hartnett, 2535, which has now been marked as Exhibit 159, do you recognize what's up on the screen there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the interior of the trunk of the black Lexus SUV.
And is that a fair and accurate portrayal of the interior of the trunk as you observed it in the Canton Police Department garage on February 2nd?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Hartnett, what's up on the screen is photograph 2539. That's now been marked as Exhibit 160. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That's the rear passenger area of the black Lexus.
Now, as far as the damage that you observed from the broken taillight, if you could, using the laser pointer before you, direct the jury's attention to that, or what's visible of that in this photograph.
I think so.
This area here is the broken taillight.
I tried. I tried. Super Planet Girl tried. So, yeah.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have the next photograph, 2540.
Right.
Now exhibits 161.
Yeah.
Again, Ms. Hartnett, if you could, using that laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to where you observe, if anywhere in this photograph, damage to the right rear passenger tail.
There's damage in this area here to the rear tail light.
So I think we'll see in this picture, I believe we will see in this picture. In the video that I made, I referred to the interior. I know there's pictures of it. I just don't remember which witness it's with, but that the interior of the taillight, and again, it might be after they take more pieces of it out, but I don't remember. But yeah, the interior is like the silvery housing or like silvery lining in there that's reflective. So we might see that in these pictures, but that is what whenever that does come up at some point, if it's, it might be when they take more of it out, but I'm sure we'll see it. But yeah, but that was what I was referring to when you hear me talking about that in the little experiment video that I did.
From the damage that you observed, it essentially wraps around from both the back and from the passenger side of the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's up on the screen as photograph 2554, exhibit 165?
Yes, I do.
And you were talking before, earlier in your testimony, about some stickers or some sort of evidentiary marker that you would put on an item that you're examining, correct?
Correct.
And do you see any of that in this photograph here?
Yes, I do.
And could you direct the jury's attention using a laser pointer to where you observed that and what, if any area of damage or what that's to note?
There's a sticker here, and I know you can't see it. I don't know if you can zoom in.
You good, Mr.
There's a letter on the sticker, I believe it's A, that denotes that there's something there that I was going to collect. And right next to that sticker here is the apparent.
Seeing it again, I'm just like really happy with my little experiment with the hair because it looks exactly like that, which is insane.
Hair that I noticed.
And similarly, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize anything in this photograph in regard to something that you had marked?
Yes, that's the rear bumper of the SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could.
I mean, again, it's just one hair. It's so silly, right? It's like we have hairs everywhere. It's like if there had been any contact of a human head of hair with a Lexus or with any vehicle that caused not even lethal damage, even just some sort of damage, there would be more than one hair. Like, and there would be more than like that little denty thing that it's just not. Ugh. It's just so silly. It's so desperate, right? It's like grasping at straws, man. Yeah, right. Great point. Blood, right. Yeah.
And
of course.
Ms. Hartnett, in this photograph, what if
This
anything is
whole thing
depicted
is
that
just
you
like-
noted something
Yep.
that's sort of black?
And he would have had to be on his knees for his head to be at that level of that taillight.
There is pieces of apparent glass here on the bumper.
Apparent glass, it's not glass. Oh,
Ms.
wait.
Hartnett, again, photograph 2573, what's now been marked as exhibit 169. Can you recognize what's depicted in this?
Yes, I do.
And if you could explain to the jury sort of what we're looking at in this photograph?
This is the area of the rear passenger side of the vehicle just below the taillight.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask sort of towards the top center of that photograph, if you could zoom in on that area. Ms. Hartnett, do you observe another sort of sticker or placard that
Right,
depicts
of
in
course,
that area?
that's right, of course.
Yes, I do.
And what, if anything, is that in reference to?
That's just a scratch. Again, I have scratches like that on my car that I had that, and that's not the one I was saying is similar. We're getting to that in a sec, but I do have ones like that on my car that I didn't even show y'all in the video, but it's just a tree branch can do that. It's insane. It's insane.
I'm sorry, I can't see what the letter is on it, so I'm not sure.
only that, it's not consistent with anything that they're well, they're not even suggesting a theory. It's not consistent with anything. It's just not. It's just a car.
What that's in reference to.
Can't.
Ms. Hartnett, can you see better there as far as what the sticker is and what you had noted there?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what you had noted in that particular area?
I noted there were scratches in that area.
And Ms. Gilman, if you could, the one above. Thank you. Also within this exhibit 172, there's another sticker further upward on the vehicle. What, if anything, did you note or observe in that particular area?
In that area, I noted the apparent hair.
Again, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's contained in photograph 2558, exhibit 173?
Yes, I do.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to just zoom in a bit on the sticker in the middle of the screen.
There's the backwards hair.
And again, Ms. Hartnett, what is depicted in this photograph?
That is a picture of the apparent hair I noted in the area.
And for the record, this is exhibit 176. Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to zoom in a bit on the sticker in the middle there. Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in this exhibit?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
That's the damage I noted on the rear door.
And that's the damage that is actually really similar to what I showed y'all on my door of my car that I think happened because of somebody else's car door, or maybe even a shopping cart or whatever in a parking lot. It's very similar, actually.
Were you presented with any additional evidence by any officers from the Canton Police?
Yes, I was.
And what were those items?
I was presented with a broken drinking glass that was reported to have been recovered from the scene at 34 Fairview Road. I was also presented with several solo cups filled with frozen red brown stains.
What did you think of that, ma'am? How can you sit there with a straight face? How? Like literally, I don't, you, if you had any credibility, despite your hair probation, it's gone because you're talking about that with a straight face. Just why? How? How?
Now, starting with the drinking glass, what, if anything, did you do with regard to
Starting with the drinking glass.
I packaged it in a brown paper bag.
And with regard to the cups with red-brown stains contained within, what, if anything, did you do with regard to that?
I allowed the cups to thaw, and then I took 2 sterile swabs, like something similar to a Q-tip, and collected a sample from the red-brown stains in those cups.
And then what, if anything, after you took the swabbings from those solo cups, let me ask first with regard to the solo
Fucking
cups,
hell,
what
Lally.
we're done with those?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure.
Right?
So
Yeah, that was
after you
enough.
took the swabbings from the red cups, what, if anything, was done with the red cups?
I returned those to the Canton Police Department to
Yeah,
store
yeah.
as they saw fit.
Yeah, we made cocktails and we drank that out of them. I mean, what do you think?
And as far as
Fucking-
the swabbings that you took, what did you do with those?
I secured those in a glassine envelope in a large envelope and then transported those back to the lab.
I mean, yeah. And having said that, it's like, does it even matter? Because they're in 6 solo cups. It doesn't. But yes, it's still infuriating though. But yeah.
Now,
It was over.
after your examination on scene, you returned back to the lab, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what items of evidence did you examine first in this case in the laboratory?
I examined the apparent hair from the vehicle as well as the broken taillight.
Now, starting with the examination of the taillight, well, let me ask, in general terms, when items are taken by you back from any kind of scene or any kind of place that you're processing, and you bring them back to the lab, what is it that you do with them when you get back to the lab?
When I get back to the lab, I ensure that they're packaged properly, that they're sealed, and they're stored in the appropriate location within the lab. I also enter them into our laboratory information management system so that from that point forward, those items can be tracked throughout the lab.
And then from that specific item, did you perform any testing on that item?
No, I did not do any testing on the item.
And why not?
I was, due to the case history, there was no visible red-brown stains on the item, as well as the fact there was a very limited surface area for me to sample from.
No, that's
In
a red
addition,
flag.
I was informed that
That's a red flag that I don't know that I noticed listening to it live, but due to the case history is the first thing she says. Why do you need that? Like, this is a mess. This is bad. This is so bad. Because she could have just said, she could have just gone straight to when she answers this, right? She could have just said that the size of it, the surface area wasn't enough, blah, blah, right? Like, that's what she's going to, like, okay, hold on. Let's listen to that, and then we'll back up.
the car had been towed through a blizzard. So given the fact that there was potentially very limited material on the taillight, if any type of testing that we do would remove additional material.
So first of all, by the way, this answer is good for the defense because she's saying is a blizzard is a problem because it's going to remove shit. But let's go back and hear the first part I was saying about her answer. That's so interesting.
It's a very limited service.
Or, well, alarming maybe is a better way to put it.
From that specific item, did you perform any testing on that item?
No, I did not do any testing on the item.
And why not?
I was, due to the case history, there
Due to the case history.
was no visible red-brown stains on the item.
It's not good, man. The first thing she says is due to the case history. She's talking, hold on. She's talking about, let me back up a little bit. Because now I'm like, wait, what?
Into our laboratory information management system so that from that point forward, those items can be tracked throughout the lab.
And then from that specific item, did you perform any testing on that item?
No, I did not do any testing on the item.
And why not?
I was, due to the case history, there was no visible red-brown stains on the item, as well as the fact there was a very limited surface area for me to sample from. In addition, I was informed.
The thing is, due to the case history is a problem, right? Because you're testing, you shouldn't have, the goal should be to test everything, right? Like, because you're not supposed to be knowing what happened. Like, you're not supposed to be knowing what happened or making assumptions, or law enforcement isn't. I mean, we know that, anyway, they shouldn't be, right? They should be just testing everything. Not to mention, it's like the case history here is fucked. That's relying on a narrative from somebody else instead of testing. So there's that. And then she said there's no red brown stains. I mean, but also shouldn't there be? Again, like what? Like, right. Yes, thank you, Kit Smith. Yeah. And then also like Super Planner Girl said, shouldn't there be blood on it though? I mean, this is actually a big deal because it's like the whole thing is he was fucking hit with this car and with the taillight, right? And they didn't test it for blood. Now, I mean, they wouldn't have found blood. I would bet everything that they would not have found blood. I believe her when she said there was no brown stains. But that's a problem, right? It's a problem that the Commonwealth is still going forward with this. That's the point. Like, yeah, I'm sure there were no brown stains, but you should have tested it. See, the thing is that would have been exculpatory evidence, right? This is a problem. That would have been exculpatory. Like, you cannot legally, oh my God, y'all, you can't just get around exculpatory evidence by not testing shit that you know is going to be exculpatory. This is a problem. Yeah, there is. And she actually mentions that with she mentions that with something else. I don't remember if it's the shoes or the shirt, but yeah, they have the confirmatory test they can do. They got a whole lot, they got numerous steps of the shit they can do. And then it gets even worse. When I say worse, I mean better for the defense in the sense that she even refers to the blizzard and that that you would lose DNA because of the blizzard and shit wouldn't be on there because of the blizzard. It's like, Wow, this is a exceptionally bad and concerning and alarming answer.
That the car had been towed through a blizzard.
Even with
So
such
given
a
the fact
high
that there was
low
potentially
bar.
very limited material on the taillight, if any type of testing that we do would remove additional material. So I made the conservative decision to take a swabbing of the item and send it forward for DNA.
Are you saying that blizzard conditions would actually have some effect on what's left on the car? Is that what you're saying? Because
Now, Ms. Hartnett, directing your attention to what's up on the screen now is Exhibit 187. Again, do you recognize what's depicted in there?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize it to be?
That is the taillight that I removed from the black Lexus SUV.
And Ms. Gilman, if I could have 8971, next photograph. What's now up on the screen is Exhibit 188. Again, do you recognize what's depicted there?
Yes, I do.
And what is depicted there, and what, if anything, is, in addition to the taillight, what, if anything, are you?
That is the taillight from the black Lexus SUV from a different angle. I am holding up a ruler to show the scale of the item.
And again, do you recognize what's up on the screen?
Yes, I do.
Can you explain to the jury what we're looking at, perspective-wise, and what, if anything, you're doing?
yeah,
That is the back side of the taillight.
so I think that's actually good to see, right? Because you can actually kind of tell how thin it is, right? That's the black. That's the back side. So like, you know, that wouldn't have been exposed to anything that was out. Like you wouldn't, that couldn't be exposed until it's removed, right? But you can kind of just see that, like I said, when I used the word machinery and then laughed at myself in the video of like how it's just an illusion that it's got all this depth and angles to it, right?
And again, I'm holding up a ruler to show the scale of the item.
Now, Ms. Hartnett, from your initial response to the Canton Police Department, you secured a number of different items from the Canton Police Station that day, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And those were labeled subsequently as items 3-1 through 3-13, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, turning your attention to item 3-6, that was the apparent hair, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in reference to your analysis with regard to the hair,
Oh my God,
that
Lally.
QLIM term
All
that I asked you about
Lallyisms.
before, QLIM, what, if any, significance did that terminology have to your examination of the hair?
Per protocol, all hairs that will go forward for DNA are considered QLIM, meaning that the entire sample will be used up during testing.
And with regard to item 3-6, the apparent hair, can you explain the examination process or what it is that you're doing with reference to that piece?
Yes. I take the apparent hair and I mount it on a glass slide using deionized water. I then put the slide under a microscope and I'm looking for certain characteristics to determine if that piece of material is a hair or fiber or some other unknown material.
And as far as your examination is concerned in that microscopic analysis, what are some of the things or what are some of the characteristics that you're trained to look for that you observed in this specific instance to give you that determination that it was a human hair?
On the exterior of the hair, there'll be scales, and depending on those shape, it can help you determine whether or not the hair is an animal hair or a human hair. Human hair have imbricate scales, which look like overlapping shingles with a wave-like edge. That is what I observed on this hair.
And as far as the sneakers being labeled,
Yeah, but ma'am, you're
two
on hair
different,
probation. Do I
stickers, do you know
really
why
trust
that was?
the answer?
One of the sneakers was recovered from 34 Fairview Road, and one of the sneakers was recovered from the hospital.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Hartnett, you responded to Canton Police Department. A lot of your testimony was about what happened in the Sally Port, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You were asked if you responded to the Canton Police Department on February 2nd, and most of your testimony was predicated on that date, you going over there and doing some visual observations, as well as some removal of items and some other testing, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Was it February 2nd or was it February 1st?
May I check my notes?
I'd appreciate it if you did, yes.
My apologies, that was my error. It was February 1st.
Okay. So everything that you testified to, you only went once,
Yes, that's correct.
So everything that you testified to having taken place on February 1st, we should assume it was actually on February 2nd, we should assume it was actually February 1st, the one time you were there.
Yes, I was there one time.
Okay. Were you dispatched to the Sally port? And I apologize, I'm not yelling at you. I'm trying to keep my voice elevated, so just so you know.
Understood.
It's not my normal speaking voice. You were dispatched at the behest of one of the Massachusetts State Troopers, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The Detective Bureau specifically, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Trooper Proctor more specifically, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And Trooper Proctor, you knew at that time to be the lead detective, the person that was in control of the investigation.
May I check my notes who I wrote down as the lead investigator at that
If it
time?
would refresh your recollection, sure. With the court's permission.
Yes.
Yes, I was told on scene that Trooper Proctor was in charge of the investigation.
All right. Now, while you were there, one of the things that you did initially was to just do an overview of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Obviously, that was important given the limited information that you had at that time about a potential motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
Correct.
So you were looking for anything that would rise to a level of investigative concern regarding that vehicle, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Hence your review and notation of certain scratches on the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes.
Which may or may not have anything to do with the incident, but you noted it anyway, correct?
Right. Yes.
I did not draw any conclusions as to where those scratches came from.
Okay, you just took the words right out of my mouth. My next
I don't know
question.
if I
The
believe
dent that you noted and photographed. You made no conclusion that that occurred as a result of a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
The scratches, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them. The scratches that you denoted and photographed.
Here's the thing. So yeah, she did make no conclusion. That's not her job. However, it's like it speaks for itself that they were pointed out, right? Like in other words, the thing is that if something doesn't have anything to do with it, they can't present it as evidence. So like, you know, in other words, if they present it, it suggests to the jury that it's related, right? Even if they don't say it's related, even if they can't prove it's related, just it's the suggestion by showing those. Why else would they be showing them, right? Like, so yeah, we know she's going to testify to saying that she didn't say that, quote unquote, but like she's saying it in a way, right?
Or had photographed. You made no conclusions about that having anything to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
Even the broken taillight. At that point, you made no conclusions or drew no scientific conclusions about that having anything at all to do with a motor vehicle pedestrian incident, correct?
That's correct.
You did, however, look for tissue, human tissue, blood, biological material, and things of that nature on the car itself. Did you not?
Yes, I did.
In that review, I think you testified that you saw nothing that suggested the transfer of human tissue to the vehicle, correct?
I did not see any visible stains or tissue on the vehicle.
You were told, Ms. Hartnett, that
if they're suggesting it's a fatal car accident with man, it's tough, right? It's tough. But again, none of this even matters because solo cups.
Scratches on one of the extremities of John O'Keefe, correct?
That's correct.
Were you shown a photograph of those scratches to assist you in your visual review or examination of that vehicle?
Not at that time, no.
To this date, have you seen a photograph of his arm and the injuries to his arm?
Yes, I have.
Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize what's depicted in Exhibit 19?
Yes, I do.
And you've seen that pattern of scratches previously, correct?
Yes, I've seen a photo containing
y'all.
Okay,
something
and that's
similar.
consistent with the photo that you've seen since your visit to the Sally Port on February 1st, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Was there anything in your, by the
I
way,
would just say I've been torn up. I told the story many episodes ago about when I went running, but I'm so accident prone. I've been torn up by road and concrete and asphalt so many times. Whether it was when I was learning to ride a fixed gear bike with being clipped in, I ate road a million times, or that time I tripped running. That was, well, I'm sure it happened more than once, but there was that one time that was extremely bad. Many other things. that's just not, that's not road rash. It's just not, you know.
Did you look at all around the vehicle?
You know, normally we would have doctors telling us that, and I'm sure we will when it's the defense's turn. But yeah, so I'm going to go off of my personal lived experience, and that does not seem anything like, I mean, it really does. I'm sorry, but just looking at it, it's like punctures, right? Punctures. It's really consistent. You can imagine with like a dog. It really is. As much as I don't want to throw Chloe under the bus, I mean, it's like, it's specific. It's specific. It's a specific type of wound where it's like a puncture and then something being dragged kind of, especially on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And the middle part does seem kind of like teeth. So, you know, Runkle gave a description early on about a dog clenching there around the elbow and then the paws on either side. I mean, it really does. That is what it looks like.
160 degrees?
Yes, I did.
Did you look toward the top of the vehicle as well as toward the bottom of the vehicle?
I did not examine the roof of the vehicle. I did not examine the roof of the
I
vehicle.
love that she says that.
Did you examine
I love that she says that. You know, she knows he's not asking about the roof. Like, what the fuck?
the undercarriage of the vehicle?
I did look at the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And you know what I mean when I say undercarriage.
And of course, because of the whole thing about the multi-level change of theories in this case, but there's that one that we just heard from the previous witness about the body being dragged. Well, we all know what that would mean, right? With the undercarriage.
Carriage.
Yes.
Could you explain for the jurors what you mean when you use the word undercarriage?
The parts that normally you would have to see by, bending over or laying underneath the car to view what's underneath the vehicle.
That would include the frame and the axle and the drive shaft, transmission, things of that nature.
Yes, I'm not confident in all the terminology of the undercarriage, but yes.
Did you see anything that was suggestive of or consistent with the pattern of injury that you see to Mr. O'Keefe's right arm?
I wouldn't say I'm qualified to make any kind of pattern determination in what would match the injuries on his arm.
I think
So the answer to my question is, as you sit here, you made no observation of anything on the SUV that matched these injuries, correct?
I wouldn't be.
Go ahead and answer that.
I wouldn't be able to testify from that from memory. I don't have a photograph of the undercarriage, nor did I make any kind of conclusions about that at the time.
Okay, understood. And you didn't take any, I'm sorry, the swabs and samples that you did take variously on the car all came back negative for human tissue, et cetera.
The testing that I did on scene from the various areas of the undercarriage, which I had mentioned before, the tire flaps, the edge of the bumper, and the exhaust pipe, screened negative for blood.
On February 1st, 2002, in addition to taking some swabs from the vehicle itself, you also mentioned that you took swabs of what you believe to be blood evidence contained in 6 solo cups, correct?
Yes, I noted those as frozen red-brown stains in red cups.
Were those solo cups in any way labeled among themselves? In other words, solo cup 1, 2, 3, 4.
I don't believe they were, but I don't have a photograph of that, so I'm not 100% sure.
You did not thereafter label those solo cups. If they hadn't been done beforehand, you did not undertake that to label those solo cups, correct?
No, I did not label them.
Did you, how did you take those swabs? Was the swab done in one solo cup, or did you take a swab from all 6, or how did you take those?
It just gets worse. It just gets worse. It's like, it's bad enough that it's solo cups, it's bad enough all of it, but it just gets somehow worse with the swabs.
Those swabs that you ultimately did take.
Amazing.
I took those swabs from one solo cup.
How did you choose which of the 6 solo cups you were going to take a swab from?
I don't recall exactly how I chose which cup. It was reported to me that those cups came from the same area of red-brown staining, so I assume, you make an assumption that they're all related. It came from what I was told, it came from one area of red-brown stain at the scene.
All
And
of
you,
this.
of course, know as a forensic criminalist that blood stains can contain multiple contributors, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You don't know as you sit here which blood stain found at the scene related to which solo cup in the bag, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No, it was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain, but I was not there.
And the sad thing is, like, it doesn't even fucking matter anyway, because it's in a fucking red Solo cup and in a brown paper bag and left in a Sally port. But even if, like, again, it's just, even if it was just the Solo cups, it would be game over. You can't get past, there's no way around it. It was over. I know, Kitsmits, I know. See, we know. Again, like my little nephew would know better, my 6-year-old nephew, my violin students of various ages, like everybody that I know who of any age would know better. It's just, I don't know. It's sad.
The same scene or
Stain, excuse me. It was my understanding they were all taken from the same stain.
okay. If they in fact were taken from multiple stains, you would have no way of knowing that as you sit.
That's correct.
And ultimately, once you did take that swab from that single Solo cup, what did you do with the rest of that blood evidence?
I left that with the Canton Police Department.
Was there any of the swab? By the way, I should ask this. I've been saying swabs. Was there one swab taken of that one from that one Solo cup, or were there multiple swabs taken?
There were 2 swabs taken.
Of those 2 swabs, did you seek to do DNA testing, or was DNA testing done on either one of those or both of them?
DNA testing was not done on those swabs.
So as we sit here now, there's been no DNA confirmation of what who those
Right? I
who that
know.
blood
I know,
relates
Abby.
to,
Yeah.
I should say.
There was no testing done on it at all.
And so therefore,
Yeah.
we would not know if there were multiple
Yeah.
contributors to those stains or that swab.
There's just, I mean, it was like, and it was building up to it, right? That day was so insane. I'll never forget it. I screamed out loud in the grocery store. You all know the story. But it's like, it started out, it was building its way up with like the leaf blower and the fact that they didn't ever search the house and they didn't do all this. And you're like, what? And then it gets to the Solo cups and then they're in the bag and then they're left in the lollipop. And it's like, what? It blows my mind. It blows my mind that was weeks ago and they're still at a trial. Blows my mind.
You took from that single Solo cup.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
exactly. Yeah. 100%. It was the Solo cups. Like I keep saying, that's when it was game over. It was like the other stuff was bad, but it was like, you're waiting for the explanation and then it gets to the Solo cups and you're like, oh, that's the explanation. It's not the explanation I was expecting, but that's the explanation because it's fucked. That's what it is. Right. Exactly. Yes. Right. 100%. Well, yeah. And also to me, this is such a gross miscarriage of justice for everybody. You know, like I'm really invested in seeing the right things happen here. But I trust the jury. You know, I do. I trust the jury. So.
And again, the remainder of all of that Solo cup,
And hopefully
as
we will-
well as all the other 5 Solo cups, was retained by Canton Police at the Canton Police Department in the control of the lead investigator, Michael Proctor, correct?
I don't know who was in control of it once I returned it to the Canton Police Department.
Who did you return it to at the Canton Police Department? Whom, I should say.
I believe I gave it to a Canton police officer. I don't know which officer that was.
Michael Proctor was at the Sally port at the time that you were doing your examination, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Did he not take control of it himself?
Not that I saw. I don't know who took control of them once I was done with my collection.
May have, you just don't know.
Correct.
Okay.
I
Going
don't.
back
I'm not,
to-
I'm not a fan of her facial expression. It's just kind of like, what's the word, smug or something? I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Some of the damage that you did.
I mean, to me, she comes across differently than the next 2 ladies that come after her, who do have similar roles. I would say, you know, I guess she's actually there at the lolliport doing her job. So maybe because of that they influenced her more. I don't know, but like her demeanor is very different than the next 2 witnesses who also do forensic testing. In my opinion.
Note on the vehicle, that vehicle looked like it had been driven to a certain degree, right?
Objection. Can you answer that?
Oh, this part's interesting because we're going to hear her answer this very differently on redirect.
I'm not. If you could clarify the question, I'm not sure what you're asking.
Terrible question. Let me try it again. That vehicle was not a vehicle that had clearly just come off the showroom floor and had not been in use, based on your examination.
I don't think I'm qualified to make that kind of decision.
It looked like there was some normal wear and tear on the car.
Other than the specific items that I pointed out earlier, the dent and the scratches, the exterior was in overall good condition. So I can't say specifically if it was driven I don't think I can make that conclusion unless you want to rephrase the question.
You didn't have any reason to believe that car was in any other condition than it had been owned and driven by somebody, right? Or could you make that conclusion?
I don't think I can make that conclusion.
So it could have been.
I noticed something just interesting just now as well that I didn't notice before. I'm going to back it up. Notice what she says when she talks about the damage that the vehicle already had.
Other than the specific items that I pointed out earlier, the dent and the scratches.
The specific items that she pointed out earlier, the dent and the scratches. So what's missing from that, right? I think it's interesting that she doesn't see the taillight because she's putting that in a different category. I mean, without, like, that's not like she's doing that on purpose, but like, you can tell how she views that information, right? Because the dent and the scratches, like if she's trying to say, here's the damage that I mentioned earlier, shouldn't she be also mentioning the taillight? Does that make sense? Right. Yeah, exactly. So it would only make sense for her to say all of the things, right? But she says the dent and the scratches, she doesn't say the taillight. So that in a way is like her kind of, like you can draw from that she knows that those were already there and that they had nothing to do with whatever the fuck happened at that, around that time of the incident, as they call it, right? Yeah, I don't know, because the taillight is like the biggest deal of the whole thing, though, right?
The exterior was in overall good condition, so I can't say specifically if it was driven I don't think I can make that conclusion unless you want to rephrase the question.
You didn't have any reason to believe that car was in any other condition than it had been owned and driven by somebody, right? Or could you make that conclusion?
I don't think I can make that conclusion.
So it could have been an absolutely brand new, right off the showroom floor car?
I guess I don't have any understanding of what could have happened to it in the showroom. I'm not sure I understand the line of questioning.
Why don't we move along?
Fair enough. I guess what I'm asking is, did you've done some damage analysis in the past, obviously, and this was not your first rodeo, right?
I don't do damage analysis of some vehicles.
Okay. Did this car look like it had reasonably normal wear and tear on it?
Kit Smith, so what's your thought about the comment with the case history? I know you talked about that earlier, but I'm curious what you think in terms of what you said here with the taillight is so obvious it isn't worth mentioning. And then in reference to the, God damn it, Wally's, in reference to the case history.
That's my question.
I don't feel comfortable answering that question.
Okay. Ultimately, the right rear taillight housing was removed, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you the person?
I think it's still a good answer for them because the way she says that, because then Lally, the reason I say that is only because of what happens on redirect. Like, because, I mean, what the fuck, Lally? Because she answers it completely fucking different. She like, it just makes it glaringly obvious that there's an issue here with being biased for the prosecution.
Hartnett who actually used the tools to remove that taillight, be it screwdrivers, wrenches, anything else?
No.
Okay. Who was that?
Like, actually, so let me just be more clear on that. So, like, in other words, it would have been a good answer for the defense if she was like, you know, yeah, that looked like normal wear and tear, but it's still a good answer for them that she's like, I don't feel like I can answer that because of what happens on redirect. So
actually did that work?
It was a Canton police officer that had entered the garage, and as I was removing it, he offered to help. He said he knew how to basically take it out of the housing, which at that point, I was not sure how I would do that.
Okay. I'd like to show you an exhibit that you
do y'all remember which officer that was? I know we heard about that earlier.
Yes, that is the taillight housing that I submitted to the lab from the garage.
Ultimately, there was a swab taken, you mentioned on direct examination, of that taillight somewhere on the house, correct?
Yes, I took a swab from that taillight.
Where exactly did you take that swab from?
I took it from the outer exposed areas, which would have been on the outer side of the vehicle. So I did not take it from the internal, what would have been the internal portion of the taillight when it was intact.
Can you point with a laser pointer exactly where you swabbed that taillight housing?
Sure. Is there a way that, can it get zoomed in just a little bit so I can differentiate the silver in the front? I'm having a little trouble.
Is that zoomed in enough, or do you need more?
I believe so. I can start. So I took it from the red area here that would have been exposed. And then if we could zoom in a little bit more just on this front area so I can differentiate between the internal structures and the external.
Was it one swab?
Yes, that's correct.
So you swabbed multiple areas
And why the
with
fuck?
one swab?
The
and then
swabs can't be
submitted.
that expensive,
Yes.
So you don't know, as you sit here, where, if any DNA was detected,
They're just regular
where
swab.
that DNA may have come from,
right? It's the fluid.
No,
they
that's
swab
correct.
into.
other than the general housing altogether.
Yes. So then just to finish your previous question, I did.
Sorry, I didn't mean to-
That's okay. It's just I couldn't see it. So this area here, which would have been the external portion of the tail light. So the areas I did not swab were any areas that would have, when the tail light was intact, been protected by the outer plastic housing of the tail light.
Is your testimony, Ms. Hartnett, that what you just pointed to
Yeah,
was
there you
the
go, outer
exterior
plastic.
portion of the tail, at bottom left?
No, just this piece of plastic here is the exterior, the exterior piece of plastic.
And you swabbed that area as well as other areas on the exterior, like the red upper right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. As you swab that, the DNA test does not differentiate where you swab, just that you swab,
I
correct?
think the Canton
Yes,
brain
that's
freeze-
correct. That was all one swab, one collection.
Got it. So we can't define whether the DNA was to the upper right, on the outside of the lens, or some other place that you pointed to.
That's correct.
And of course, you're familiar with touch DNA, et cetera, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Touch an item, walk away, sweaty palms. Good
Right.
likelihood I just left some DNA on this podium, correct?
Yes, you can transfer skin cells by touching an item.
Right. I don't think we heard from that law enforcement officer. We just heard of him. It was the guy who like works on cars in his free time or something like that. So that's what I was. Yeah.
Thank you. You also indicated that you
So they were
collected
like that for
glass from the rear bumper of Miss Reed's Lexus, correct?
Yes, I have it as a parent class, but yes.
As a parent glass, fair enough. You labeled that as item 3-3, and it was 5 pieces of glass labeled A through E, right? A, B, C, D, E. Is that
May I
yes?
look at, may I refer to my notes?
With the court's permission.
I don't have the exact number in my notes, and honestly, it's difficult to tell from my picture, so I don't want to say that I saw 5 pieces of glass.
Did you not annotate that somewhere, that you
Crazy.
recovered 5 pieces?
Again, I have a photograph of it, but it's difficult to see
This
on
is
this printed
block.
page, so I didn't specifically write 5 pieces anywhere.
Okay, well, okay, then let me.
I mean, unless-
let me see if
well,
can
I say
do it
that.
This way.
I'm saying it's sloppy. I guess it's also plausible that someone told her not to put how many pieces because, you know, there were more pieces that showed up after the fact, right?
Instead of pitching, let's catch. The person that you submitted it to would have annotated exactly what the
Yeah.
grouping was that you submitted
Quit Smits.
to try to be accurate.
I think it does. I can't remember which trial it was. I can't remember which trial it was, but I remember there was another trial where that was mentioned that that they would have the privacy screen up on their laptops so people can't see what's on there.
I'm the one that initially, excuse me, after the item was sent to
But I do. I'm gonna back it up.
fingerprinting, then I examined the
I do
item.
want to see that. I didn't actually see that. Let me back that up because I want to see what it looks like. But yeah, I'm sure you're right about that.
Instead of pitching, let's catch. The person that you submitted it to, 5 pieces of glass labeled A through E, right? A, B, C, D, E. Is that
May I
yes?
look at, may I refer to my notes?
With the court's permission.
I don't have the exact number in my notes, and honestly, it's difficult to tell from my picture, so I don't want to say that I saw 5 pieces of glass.
Did you not annotate that somewhere, that you recovered 5
Right,
pieces?
and that's why I first said
Again, I
slop.
have a photograph of it, but it's difficult to see on this printed page, so I didn't specifically write 5 pieces anywhere.
Okay, well, okay, then let me see if I can do it this way. Instead of pitching, let's catch. The person that you submitted it to would have annotated exactly what the grouping
Right,
was that
I know.
you submitted to try to be accurate.
I'm the one that initially, excuse me, after the item was sent to fingerprinting, then I examined the item, but I didn't write down exactly how many pieces of glass were present. I just took a photo.
And as you sit here, you don't recall necessarily how many pieces you took off that bumper.
Correct. And the quality of the photo does not allow me to see that at this point.
Okay, and if we could, Mr. Bates, with the court's permission, could we zoom in on the area a little bit bigger than that? Capture all of the documents there. Zooming in at this point, and I would ask you, Ms. Hartnett, do you recognize this photo? It's zoomed a little bit. Do you still recognize it?
Yes, I do.
Is that a photograph that you caused to be taken at the Sally Port on February 1st, 2022?
I believe it was February 2nd, right? Did we, or it's February 1st now? We agreed it's February 1st. My apologies.
No.
Yes, on February 1st, I did request that photo be taken of the apparent pieces of glass.
Okay, and can you, I know you can't see necessarily every piece. Can you use your laser pointer and point to a piece?
Sure.
Okay, got it. So that's the largest of the pieces, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it's correct that none of these pieces of apparent glass were embedded in the bumper. They weren't dug in and stuck into that hard plastic, correct?
No, I do not have that. I do not have that notation that they were embedded, just they were on the bumper.
As a matter of fact, they were physically perched on top of that hard plastic horizontal bumper.
Yeah, they were
correct?
resting there.
To my recollection, they were just sitting on the bumper, yes.
Okay. And do you know, just in your experience, and if we could leave this up for just a moment while I ask the next couple of questions, Your Honor?
Okay.
Do you know where
That
Dayton,
is
Massachusetts
hilarious.
is?
That's
I know the
hilarious.
general area.
How far would you say that is from Canton?
I don't know, maybe a half an hour. I'm not exactly sure.
Do your notes indicate that the vehicle was recovered from Dayton and towed back to Canton and placed in the Sally Port before you started your examination?
Yes.
So and you also had been apprised before you began your examination that the incident in question took place in Canton, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So you knew as you were looking at this vehicle and doing your examination, the vehicle had to have been driven by definition from Canton to Dayton and then towed back from Dayton back to Canton, correct?
I was informed that the car was recovered in Dayton.
And ultimately either driven back or towed back. One of the ways, some way it ended up back in Canton, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if Dayton is, how far would you say Dayton is from Canton?
Again, I'm really guessing. I would say maybe a half an hour.
30 miles?
Potentially. I don't know exactly. I was never in Dayton.
Okay, so according to your notes, the glass pieces that we're looking at on the back of this bumper would have traveled, let's call it for round figures, about 60 miles in a blizzard before you saw it.
I don't know when the glass pieces were ended up on the bumper, so I couldn't say.
And of course, you knew that on February 1st, you knew a few days earlier, on the 29th, there had been a pretty significant snowstorm here in Massachusetts, correct?
Yes, I did have that information.
And that blizzard included high winds, freezing rain, snow, all the good stuff with a blizzard, correct?
I don't recall the exact weather conditions of the blizzard.
But irrespective, after all of that, whatever that was, you saw these 5 pieces just sitting perched on the top of the bumper, not embedded in any.
I also think it's interesting when she said, I can't say when the pieces of plastic ended up on the bumper or when they got on the bumper. She says something like that. I also think that's interesting because if they didn't end up on the bumper from the incident happening at that time, you wouldn't be testing them, right? So the very fact that you're testing them, it's inherent that they would have to have occurred at that point. That would have had to have occurred with the incident, right? So that answer is like a logical fallacy in a way, right?
Anyway, correct?
That's correct.
And you recovered those with little bitty tweezers, correct?
Yes.
We can take this down with the court's permission. You testified on direct examination that you also found a hair on that rear panel, the quarter panel of the car, correct?
Yes, at the time of the scene, I noted it was an apparent hair, correct.
And the apparent hair, and I'll try to use that same word, I keep forgetting, you'll correct me. That apparent hair was not sitting on the horizontal bumper, but on a vertical portion of the quarter panel, correct?
That's correct.
Did you find the hair, or was that hair pointed out to you by somebody else?
I believe I located the hair.
How exactly was that hair secured to that vertical panel, if you can explain that?
It didn't appear to be secured in any way. It was just on that quarter panel.
Okay, so it wasn't taped,
No,
it wasn't glued,
no,
wasn't stapled,
no.
it was not affixed in any way whatsoever. It was just perched on that vertical panel of the SUV, correct?
That's correct.
And for you to remove it, and by the way, you found this at the same time that you found the general time, that you found the glass pieces as well.
That's correct.
So that hair potentially would have had to make that same 60-mile round trip in the same blizzard.
At the time, I don't know when that hair was deposited on the vehicle.
Right. And it didn't take you much to remove that hair, correct?
I picked it up with a pair of tweezers.
It didn't give you any resistance?
Not that I recall.
Okay. I'd like to take a look at that hair if we can. I know you've seen it just a few minutes ago. I want to look at it one more time. So that hair looks, as we're looking at it, you will agree
this
that
is the
hair
one right here.
looks like almost like a backward C, correct? In other words, it looks like it's more vertical than flat in that photograph, correct?
I would agree it looks like a C on the side of the car.
If we could go to Exhibit 173. And this is the same hair photographed a second time, correct?
If we could, again, just zoom in on that sticker. Yes, that's correct.
Ms. Hartnett, does it look to you like between the first and the second photographs, that hair has moved? It's no longer an inverted C, but a C.
I mean, I think it's really obvious, personally.
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I see the two ends, which may still be making contact with the vehicle. I can't make that determination based on this photo.
Fair enough. So that was sort of my next question. I'll just dovetail it this way. Did it appear to you that the hair, which is curled, was making contact with the vehicle on the top point and the bottom point?
I would say from this photo, I honestly can't tell if those two ends are coming off the vehicle or touching the vehicle. I just can't make that determination.
But you would agree that that hair was somewhat precariously perched on that vertical quarter panel, correct?
Objection.
I want to sustain the objection, ask it differently.
We can, Mr. Bates, we're finished with that. With the court's permission, we can take that down. If you take a look at the zoomed photos that have just been marked as 259 and 260 respectively, can you take a look at those side by side, and when you're finished, I'd like to ask you a question or two about those.
Okay.
Does it look from your perspective, seeing those photos side by side, that the hair appears to have gently moved just a little bit between the two photos?
I just don't think I can make that determination. They're taken from different angles. I just don't know. I can see that they have a curl in both, but I don't know which ends are making contact or if the ends are coming off the vehicle.
Had you been trained at the time that you took the swabs, had you been trained or received any training or any teaching about the relationship between keratinized tissue and DNA?
So I remember when this was happening live, as soon as I heard him say keratinized or the word keratin, I was like, holy shit. So this is where the dog hair theory comes back in, because remember, we heard about that with the dog lady about the keratinized tissue stuff. And I'm wondering if they're going to have an expert come in and testify that this is actually a dog hair because of the keratinized part.
No.
We'll see.
Do you know what keratinized tissue is?
I don't know why, and I don't know why else you ask it, you know?
You did include a handwritten note on your report that you found, quote, debris from T-shirt 717 and shirt 718, correct?
I performed a debris collection on each of those items. I don't know if that's what you're referring to.
That is what I'm referring to.
Okay.
Okay, so there was a note in your report that you had recovered some debris or you've done some debris collection, correct?
That's correct.
And you indicated in your note that the debris was from shirt 717 and shirt 718. Is that right?
May I refer to my notes?
With the court's permission.
Thank you. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And shirt 717 is which shirt?
The orange t-shirt,
And shirt 718 is which shirt?
the long sleeve gray shirt.
All right. So you took, is the right word scrapings?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. You took scrapings from both shirts. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And then combined those together and submitted that as the quote unquote debris that was assigned a new item number 7-18.18, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So as you sit here, you don't know where the debris came from specifically other than the two shirts. Could be one, could be the other, could have been a combination of both.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you describe in detail anywhere the actual debris that you found? Little fibers, little hairs, little pieces of green or blue or whatever?
If I was able to pick out a hair or a fiber, I would have attempted to do that from the debris collection. The debris collection was just anything that was left on the item that I was not able to pick off.
Okay. And you did not note any debris item that was plastic or plasticine, anything like that, correct?
No, I did not make any kind of observations on the debris itself.
And there was no marker put on any part of the debris that was recovered, correct?
That's correct.
And there was no photograph taken of the debris,
Of course not.
That's correct.
and there was no videotape of the debris collection?
Correct.
Okay.
So we don't know anything about the debris. What do you say?
When you received item 717 and item 718, that came in one evidence bag, did it not?
Yes, it did.
This evidence bag
Like-
notes.
It's like there's not a single thing in this entire investigation that they didn't do wrong. It's really crazy.
Let me start over. This evidence bag is in the condition that it was in when you received it, meaning the writing on the back was already there when you received it.
Yes, that's correct.
And it notes that these items of evidence were collected by Trooper Proctor, correct?
Yes, correct.
And the date of collection was January 29, 2022, is that right?
I'd have to relook at that
Of course.
for the date.
May I approach? Yes.
Yes, I didn't.
Display the,
So you got an answer.
My
Right, I think-
apologies.
my mistake.
The date on there is January 29th, 2022.
I don't know
Okay.
what that
Does
is.
that look like what you're looking at? Exhibit 261?
That's correct.
Thank you. Let's see if I can stand out of the way. You see Trooper Proctor's name on the evidence bag as the person that collected it.
Yes, that's correct.
And it also has a description of what's in the bag, and it shows both the orange t-shirt and the gray sweatshirt collected together and bagged together, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the date, again, once again, on the upper right is January 29, 2022, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay. You have no way of knowing as you sit here
Okay, right. Okay.
the journey that those two items of evidence took before they got to you in your lab, correct?
yes. They're tracked as soon as they're entered into our laboratory system by us.
I didn't hear any of that. I'm so
My apologies. The item would be tracked as soon as it's submitted to our lab by us, by the crime lab.
sorry. The debris that you ultimately got from the shirt or shirts, you don't know if that debris may have been in the bag and the shirts picked up the debris in the bag or otherwise, correct?
Correct.
Because they were housed together,
Yes,
stored together.
that's correct.
Were you aware before you began your analysis on either one of those shirts that those shirts had been found at the bottom of an ambulance, on the floor of an ambulance at one point?
I don't have any knowledge of where the clothing, what condition the clothing in was before I got it.
Okay, and that probably answers my next question, but just for the record, you don't have any knowledge personally as you sit here that either one of the shirts or both of them were the floor of a hospital room as well?
I have no information about where the shirts were.
One of the things that you did indicate was, in your direct examination, was how important it is to maintain sanitary conditions with evidence to avoid contamination, correct?
That's correct.
For instance, you wouldn't want to take the swabs that you so carefully utilized to swab an item of evidence and then, oops, drop it on the floor. You would have to discard that item and then start over, correct?
If a swab is dropped on the floor, we don't discard it. We would preserve it, but that would be a note that we would have to put in our file, and that, yes, that swab would not be tested any further.
There you go.
Because of the
Yeah.
possibility of
Same.
cross-contamination.
Correct.
And at least according to the evidence bag, those two shirts were in the custody and control of which trooper before you got them?
Trooper Proctor collected the evidence according to the bag.
Thank you. Ultimately, Ms. Hartnett, every single piece of taillight material and clothing that you've described in your testimony today on direct and cross-examination, all of that
Thank you, Kids Meds.
evidence was presented to you or to the lab at one time in one bundle on March 14th, 2022, correct?
No, that's incorrect.
Which portion was in the lab before March 14th?
The tail light that I collected from the vehicle was submitted prior to that, as well as any other items that I took from the vehicle.
Okay, that was a great answer and my mistake. I knew that and I forgot it. So the taillight housing you took on the first?
Correct.
Okay. Every other item other than the taillight housing itself, which you took personal possession of, all the taillight fragments, all the clothing, orange shirt, gray shirt, jeans, shoes, everything, was all submitted in one fell swoop on March 14th, 2022. Is that right?
No.
What else am I incorrect about?
So I just wanted to clear, anything that was collected from the vehicle, as well as the swabs from the red Solo cups and the drinking glass that I was presented with at Canton PD, was submitted by me on February 1st. The other items, the clothing items, were submitted together. And then there was another submission that had the fingernails and the known blood standards. So there were several submissions, so I'm hesitant to lump it all into one because it did happen on different dates.
Okay, fair enough. Do you recognize that document?
Yes.
What is that document, the second document that I just handed you?
This is a printed chain of custody report from our laboratory information management system.
I just want to go through this relatively quickly. With regard to plastic pieces that were submitted, if you look on page, for instance, page 11, where a tab is.
Yep.
That shows that that piece was submitted on March 14th, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was a piece submitted on March 14th on page, notated on page 12.
What item are you referring to?
It's a plastic piece.
Yes, correct.
Page 13, another plastic piece.
Yes, submitted on March 14th.
And page 14, another plastic piece.
Yes, that's correct.
Page 15, another plastic piece.
Correct.
And page 17.
Yes, that's correct.
And then if you turn to the next page, page 18, that's the orange t-shirt. It shows its submission date, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And what's that date?
March 14th.
And then on page, the bottom, very bottom of page 20, going into page 21, there's another item, the gray t-shirt or gray sweatshirt.
Yes, that was also submitted on March 14th.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hartnett, before you received all of the items that we've talked about and all the items that you've testified about, with the exception of the items that you physically took with you from the Sally Port, everything else that you've testified to was submitted to you on March 14th or after, correct?
That's correct.
And all submitted by Trooper Proctor, correct?
I know they were all submitted by the Norfolk County Detective Unit. I don't know the specific officer that necessarily dropped them off at the lab.
Can you answer the question based on the log information that you have and the chain of custody that's in front of you? Can you answer the question whether Trooper Proctor or anybody else stored the taillight lens material and the clothing in the same place or in the same bag before you received it?
I'm sorry, can you just repeat that question one more time?
Based on the log information that you have, in other words, the chain of custody that's in front of you, that you can absolutely look at and determine where things were and who had them, can you tell us whether or not Trooper Proctor or anybody else stored any of the taillight material and the clothing in the same place or even in the same bag?
No, I don't have any information to how the evidence was treated before it was received in the lab.
In fact, that's because there is no chain of custody for that data. I'm sorry, for those items. There's no data for those items predating March 14th, correct?
Objection. Sustained.
Insane.
You don't personally have any chain of custody information about those items we just went over predating March 14th, do you?
I personally do not have any data that would indicate where those items of evidence were prior to them being accepted into the lab.
And one of the reasons why you have such detailed chain of custody protocols is to maintain control over where items go and how they're handled and by whom, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Well done.
I have nothing further.
Okay, anything, Mr. Lally?
Now, the vehicle that you observed, the defendant's vehicle in the Sallyport of the Camp Police Station, that was in generally overall good condition, other than the areas of damage that you noted on the right rear, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Ugh.
Now, at the time that you were looking
That's what I was pointing out. He asks her and she says it's in good condition.
at the vehicle in the Sallyport of the Camp Police Station, do you recall what the temperature was inside the garage?
No, I don't have that information.
Was the temperature the same inside the garage as it was outside of the garage? If you know, was it heated at all?
I don't know if it was heated.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Well done, Lally. Boy, that really, I mean, typical Lally, right? Focusing on the fucking weather.
On that limited bit?
One follow-up question. If you take one more look at that, what's been marked for identification as UU, that's the evidence submission form, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Who signed that form?
Objection.
So the objection sustained unless you want to see me at sidebar.
I'll ask it a different way. Whose name is on the bottom of the form?
Objection.
It's the same question.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that, I have no further questions.
Right.
All right, that'll do it for this one, guys. To be continued tomorrow. So let me put this back on. So yes, so basically I'm thinking we will have tomorrow, well, we will have tomorrow, part 2 of the week 6 recap. I don't know that we'll be able to finish week 6. Probably not, because Yuri's testimony, even what we have so far, is going to be a whole lot. But I think we'll be able to get through everybody up to him and maybe start his testimony as well. And then Monday we have trial. Trial will be back next week every day except for Tuesday. And I will be covering as much of that live as I can. Should definitely be able to do Monday. So yeah, so that's it for now. Again, earlier we did a stream 2 back-to-back here. So if anyone missed it, prior to this stream, we did the, we went over the new document that was filed at the end of the court day on Thursday. It was the Commonwealth's motion. So you can check that out as well. But as always, I'll have the timestamps done shortly. And of course, everything is also in the playlist as well that you can, where you can go through and see everything in order for anyone who's catching up. But I think that'll do it for this one. So I appreciate everybody for being here. It was fun as always. And thanks for being a squirrel. And I will see y'all on the next one and roll that outro.